Thank you. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Sandra y soy la intérprete para la reunión de esta noche. Si alguien necesita de los servicios de interpretación, por favor me puede venir a ver. Estoy localizada al fondo del salón. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. We have headsets for the hearing impaired.
Thank you. This has been a complete project run by John Rochelle, a new parent that has joined our Adams family this year. And his son Stone is part of also the GATE class. And he gets all the credit for this. I just oversee this project, really. And another parent, Julia Larraway. And, but this project is completely student-run. The students do everything, as you'll see. The students do the editing, the students do it all. And we just kind of help facilitate that, and they really have stepped up. So this is our third Tiger Tales video production. This year, we're getting a little bit faster and a little bit better at it now that we have our MacBook and some of our editing tools. But we just want to first showcase our website. Yes, our website first. Because we really have a strong push this year. We have a great parent base over at Adams Elementary School. And I just want to say first, thank you to those parents. So these are our students. So students, first, before we show the video, I just want you to introduce yourself with your name and how you played a piece as part of this video production. Everybody rotates turns, but maybe one thing that you've done for this current video.
Ms. Alzina, could you please grab the microphone off of? There you go. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jack, and I was the weatherman for this current video.
Hi, I'm Ben. I was the news anchor for this video.
Right?
Hi, I'm Stone. I created the title and theme song for this video.
Hi, I'm Gustavo, and I helped with the filming for the news.
Hi, I'm Milan, and I was a reporter for Tiger Tales.
Hi, I'm Amaya, and I helped edit with a couple of the scenes.
Hi, I'm Johanna, and I also helped edit with a couple of the scenes.
Students, while we're watching the video, why don't you come right over in front of us here?
And this is John. I just wanted to have him say a few words about this process and how this process has kind of evolved.
We've basically just figured it out as we've gone along. As the kids have been kind of frustrated because it took us, a month to get our first one done, and then probably another month to get the second one out. But now I think we're on a weekly schedule. And they've just really stepped up. I gave them, at the beginning of the week, I gave them a list of what they need to get done, and then I come back the next week and it's all done. So they've just basically taken it upon themselves to make it happen. And, aside from working out a couple little technical issues, I think we're going to be on a weekly schedule for the rest of the year. So, I'm trying to leave as much of it in their hands as I can, and they stepped up to the plate. So,
Thank you. Here we go.
To express their inner creativity. It raised a lot of money for the school, too. Let's go to Amaya for a full report.
It's the Adams Tiger.
Are you having fun at the art festival? I am having so much fun at the art festival. It is so great to see all the boys and girls here having so much fun creating wonderful projects with their moms and dads. Thank you for asking.
So, what do you like most about the art festival? I like the art show the most. I like all of your work, all the kids' work as well. Do you want to make a picture? Do you have questions, quick questions for me? What are you guys going to ask me? Kelly, that looks great! That's bad. Let me find one that you have. They need to be, I like Gilbert. And they are making a dress at our art festival. They're making a soap sculpture.
Now let's go to Jack for the weather. Now let's have a look at the weather. Tomorrow, there'll be morning showers with a high of 59 and a low of 41 degrees. And on Thursday, it'll be sunny with a high of 63 degrees and a low of 43 degrees. And lastly, on Friday, it'll be sunny again with a high of 64 and a low of 42. The sound reports we have the principal's coffee where parents made picture frames for their children with Miss Alcina. Let's go to Milan for the floor. Hi, this is Milan reporting with the Tiger Tales for Principal's Coffee.
The parents are making frames.
Beautiful gold picture.
You might want to put it on the tripod.
Have you ever met a Principal's Coffee? Ever had your coffee this
So this is for your kids for Christmas. So I know that one. Yeah, this ornament. Or has like a little. So you know how your kids always make you presents? You're making your kids something.
Back to you, Ben. This has been Ben Borden reporting for Tiger Tales News. Thank you, Adam School.
We have bloopers too.
Hey. Okay. Wait, that looks lopsided. Don't turn off the camera!
There we go. Thank you for letting us share. You can view this. We have a link on our website under Tiger Tales, and you can view 1 and 2 for your pleasure as well.
Thank you very much. And if you watch TV on Saturday night at 5 o'clock on Channel 18, you'll be the stars. Okay? Saturday night, 5 o'clock, Channel 18.
Mr. Herron?
Yes.
May
Mrs.
I just
Parker.
make one comment on that, because this was referred to as a closed circuit production. In the past, only Washington Elementary has been able to do this kind of thing because they're the only elementary school site that has closed circuit television. But with Mr. Rochelle here, we've been able to leapfrog closed circuit. So at this point, with most elementary schools moving on to digital projectors, laptops, you can do this without closed circuit. So I hope that all the barriers that you've overcome, Mr. Rochelle, and there have been a lot of technical glitches, I know, that they can be sort of a blueprint for other schools that want to bring in video tech for their upper graders in the elementary level.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rochelle and students. I do have one other recognition for this section of our board report. Dr. Carol Miller. Carol, would you come forward, please? Dr. Carol Miller was hired 6 months ago, beginning. And Tom, why don't you last August to serve as our interim special education administrator. Carol, this is the camera side right here. Carol has been an invaluable resource to have worked with us to rebuild the special education department and implement FICMAT recommendations for improving the delivery of services in that department. Carol, you've accomplished a great deal in your 6 months with us. As you know, I've asked you to stay longer and longer, and you keep saying, no, I really have other things I need to go to. She's worked with our stakeholders, gathering information and helping to frame the challenges that are before us. We're deeply grateful for your professionalism and commitment to a formidable task. We hope you are now able to enjoy your richly deserved retirement. We know that you're not going to. You're just going to keep working, aren't you? You like this. Carol, when we think of you, our district office staff has visions of you carrying a little basket of apples and bottles of Perrier to your meetings. And therefore, we'd like to present you with a token of appreciation that we hope will remind you of your friends and colleagues here in Santa Barbara. Thank you, Carol. Carol will be back later.
Thank you so much. It's a great district.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I had the pleasure of meeting you out in the patio just before your interview, and you could tell immediately what kind of person you were. So it turned out to be more than I ever expected. So thank you very much.
I just want to thank you, too, on behalf of all of us for what you've done, because you've really set a new tone in special education, and we're much the better for it, and I appreciate that very much.
Dr. Sarvis?
Good. As the superintendent's report, I just have a couple of items to comment on. First, I wanted to tell you that our schools play an important role during community emergencies. With construction still underway at Cottage, the hospital does not have a helicopter landing field, so the field at La Cumbre Junior High School is used at least once a week as a helicopter landing site. And when I meet with the police, with the fire department, they're constantly thanking me for use of our field at La Cumbre School. But I want to tell you what this actually means for the students. Of course, emergency services during school hours. There is an emergency, students know that when a fire truck appears at the field gate, which generally happens about 30 to 40 minutes before the helicopter landing, they quickly grab clothes, backpacks, clothes, I mean jackets and sweaters, those kinds of clothes, backpacks and other items that would otherwise be blown away from the field, and then they head for the far side of the basketball court. While the injured person and paramedic immediately head to Cottage Hospital, the helicopter generally remains on campus for 45 to 60 minutes until the paramedic returns. Meanwhile, the students enjoy the chance to see the cockpit, ask questions of the pilot, and Principal Joanne Keynes tells us that the pilot makes a point of encouraging students to go to college. On another item, we're fortunate to live in a community that supports public education. We heard a couple of announcements just recently in connection with the Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy Foundation. They've been working at full speed to raise capital campaign funds. This week, we were able to announce the $100,000 donation from Ann and Michael Tobes. It came at the heels of a $1 million donation from Virgil Elings. These two incredibly generous donations meant $1.86 million has been raised thus far, and $1.14 million is needed to claim a $3 million state matching grant. So they're getting closer, about 2/3 of the way there. We are honored and privileged to count Mr. and Mrs. Tobes and Mr. Elings as friends of public education. The Dos Pueblos commended for their work and really worked quite quickly. Speaking of generosity, I attended Friday's Kids Helping Kids event at the Granada Theater. Under the leadership of Advanced Placement Economics teacher Jamie DeVries, San Marcos High School students raised almost $140,000. They were able to announce at the end of the event that they had hit $131,000, and Mr. DeVries told us just this afternoon that it's higher than that. They were able to raise the money for. They signed a major recording artist and had 1,600 people in attendance. This is an incredible student-run, student-organized, and student-inspired event. And we will invite Mr. DeVries and the student leaders to future board meetings. So they'll come here so that you can talk with them at board. As you can see from the information on this back board, Census 2010 is coming. An accurate census is very important because the numbers are used to provide important federal funds for community services and funds for the school district. At our next board meeting, we will be coming to the board with a resolution related to school participation in 2010 Census in Schools Week, and our thanks goes to Ed Heron, board president, for the heads up on this. So we will get the word out to our families. It'll be important to get accurate numbers. And on a quick note, the board brief. My office regularly issues a report to the board called the board brief. It's a collection of reports and news items on district matters. A copy of the December 18 board brief is on display in the reception area or through my office. Looking ahead, on Thursday, January 28th, there will be a free community seminar on internet safety. That's Thursday, January 28th. It is an opportunity for parents to learn about what kids are really doing online and what they can do to protect their children. Referred to as Poogling because poo is one of the choice words children and teens search online. Attendees are encouraged to register online at www.poogling.com. So you can register through that. Pretty cute, huh? Upcoming events in January. Well, going through the fall season was quite lengthy. We have performances at all of the schools. In January, we are already looking at a couple of performances. San Marcos High School will hold one-act plays this Friday through Saturday at 7 p.m. And La Cumbre Junior High presents Ever After the Musical this Friday at 7 p.m. Please visit our website for more information on these events. And I believe we have Emily Dahl with us tonight. Emily, would you please come forward? Emily is a student from Santa Barbara High School, and she's here to give us the student report.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm a student in the Associated Student Body class at Santa Barbara High School, and I am here to just sort of give you guys an update and some information on what we've been doing over at the high school. First of all, I guess I'll just start with December, since last time we spoke to you it was November, and we just finished with homecoming and all of that fundraising that went toward the student body. So in December, we put on, right before break, Snow Day is what we call it, where we, a couple of us get to wake up really early in the morning and truck in a bunch of snow to our lawn, and that allows kids who don't have the opportunity to go to the snow to like take their lunch period and play in the snow that we bring over, which is really fun. It doesn't raise any funds necessarily, but it's a good activity that we put on. Also in December and part of January, one of the big clubs on our campus is called Free the Children, and they had a penny drive where they placed cans in all the fourth periods at the school and are raising money for their club. That ends this Thursday, so hopefully they raised a lot of money. We're not sure yet exactly how much. Also, we recently put on the talent show, which I wasn't actually able to attend, but I heard great things about. A lot of students came out, and it was just another good sort of spirit-raising, Go Dons sort of event for us. February, looking ahead, February we have our pep rally, which is also a really good opportunity to sort of get our less involved students more like aware of what's going on at Santa Barbara High and giving them opportunities to step out a little bit. We also are holding on February 6th our winter formal, which is also a very, very large event for us that brings in a lot of funds for our student body and future events that we hold. So we're in the process of planning that, kind of coming down to the wire, hoping that that's what we're expecting. We hold that at the gym at our high school, like most of our dances. Seniors are putting a huge effort this year toward their prom, which is, we're keeping our fingers crossed, going to be held at the Sunken Gardens by the courthouse, which would be quite a step up for us. We have in the past always held prom at Earl Warren. So working with the city and the police and permits and tents and all types of crazy things, we're hoping to have prom at the Sunken Gardens this year, which would be really exciting for our seniors. I personally don't get to experience it because I'm a junior, but I'm very excited for all of them. They're also working really hard to get parents more involved with prom, because in the past we've had to work really hard with the outside community to get different help in terms of funds and chaperoning, but this year it's looking like we're going to have a lot more parent involvement with prom, which is always a good thing for the future. And so that's pretty much what's going on at Santa Barbara High School in the ASB class right now. I don't know if you guys have any questions about any of that, or if that pretty much covered it.
Ms. Cordero?
Well, I just want to say that I think a couple of us at least were on campus the day of your snow day.
Oh.
For the Don's Net Cafe grand opening.
Oh, yeah.
And so we saw the students who were participating in the activities around the snow as well. And I think there were some fundraising tables that were associated with that as well.
Yeah.
It looked like the students were having a great time.
Yeah, and I actually forgot to mention that we have a couple of preschools on our campus as well, and during the fourth period where the high school students aren't, the big scary high school students aren't out there playing in the snow, the preschoolers get to come out and enjoy the snow, and we have one of our students dress up as Santa, so it's kind of fun for them too, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Dahl, very much
Thank
for all
you.
your work and effort. It's great.
Thank you, Emily.
Dr. Sarvis has one more introduction.
Finally, I want to introduce Michelle Britton-Bass. I had told you about Michelle before. Michelle, would you please come just up to the podium? Michelle Britton-Bass is now a director of special education in our district. She's responsible for secondary special education programs. She's under the supervision of our executive director, Tom Guajardo, and she joins Carrie Mills as another director of special education. Michelle comes to us from teacher education at Antioch University, and we're very pleased to have Dr. Britton-Bass with us.
Welcome.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yes.
It
Oh,
is.
gosh. As Carol was up here, a story about how I started my morning occurred to me. Literally, she and I, before we left to go to our various meetings that have taken me up until this point in the day, and I see I'm still here, so I'm learning, we were actually trying on each other's shoes. And I can tell you that I cannot currently fit in her shoes. And my goal for the next set of years that I plan to be here is to work toward fitting into the shoes that I'm leaving, she's leaving behind with our district. I feel there's a void, and I don't promise to fill it at the moment, but I'm learning really fast. And I'm really, really excited to be here. Everyone's been very helpful helping me learn that process. I have been in the district in many, many ways over the past many years, but this is my first time actually working here since early 80s, so I'm really excited to be back. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We look forward to. I would like to alert the board that I've asked Dr. Sarvis to look into moving the board director reports to follow the superintendent's report. As you know from the past year, I'm very much want the board to be active and to let us know what's going on. And I feel by having it at 10:15 at night, or usually 11:15 at night, we're too tired to even hear each other. So if he can do it, I think we can accomplish it. I think we can say things that our committees have been doing, we've been doing in a short time frame that will probably end up getting out at the same time. But we'll have more news from each of us as to what we're involved in. So if you have any comments on that, please let Dr. Cyrus know, because he's looking into it. C2, announcement of closed session action. We took no action, so there's nothing to report out. Public comments, C3.
We have 7 speakers who would like to speak under public comment. I believe the first one is Meg Miller, and I don't have an item number here. Were you intending to speak at public comment? Okay, great. So just a reminder to students who are speaking on this item. I'm sorry, speakers who are speaking on this item. That this is the opportunity for the public to speak to items that fall under the purview of the board but are not on tonight's agenda. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Members of the school board, Dr. Cyrus, Ms. Sawaski, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. The increase in class size in grades kindergarten through 3 enacted this year is severely impeding students' learning and putting excessive strain on our teachers. Parents and staff alike are very concerned about the short and long-term effects of supersizing K through 3rd grade classes. As work on the 2010-2011 budget begins, I ask the board to make it their top priority to return class sizes to last year's levels. Further budget cuts are likely to be necessary in the next school year, and board members might hesitate to rehire teachers who were let go last year. But the savings made to the budget by laying off teachers and raising class size could have been made up by shortening the school year by a few days. In order to balance the next budget, I propose that the board and teachers union agree to reduce the length of the school year by several days, as other California school districts have done, and to return class sizes to more appropriate and manageable numbers. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Kathy Abarca, followed by Lisa Fell.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here for happy things. My name is Kathy Abarca. I'm president of the Special Ed Advisory Council, and tonight we would like to give our thanks to Carol Miller. We have some gifts for her, but we also have a certificate from the Special Ed Advisory Council that's presented to Dr. Miller for deep appreciation for her efforts to create, collaborate, and communicate with all people to bring respect and change to the Santa Barbara School District, something that the parents of this district and special education have been looking for years. So we'd like right now to thank Carol Miller from all of our hearts and wish her luck. Come on up here. Just a few things you like.
And chocolate.
And I'd like to, at this time, to thank the board of the Santa Barbara School District for your never-ending efforts in the changes that need to be made and your commitment to us. We really appreciate everything you've done so far, and hopefully we can keep going forward, right? With or without Carol?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Dr. Noel.
I think it is worth noting that this is the first time in memory that we've had a group of special ed parents rise in unison to thank a senior staff person in special education. And I think that's an indication of the direction we're headed in special education and of the progress already made.
Thank you, Dr. Noel. We all agree with that totally.
Lisa Fell. Actually, I think I have 2 from you. Followed by Cayenne Pepper Smith.
Would I speak about both right now, or would I wait because one of them is about intra-district transfers?
Oh, I'm sorry. Both of them were labeled public. Both of them were labeled public comment. The interdistrict transfer, you can, that's on the agenda. I was
It's
thinking,
on
trying to
the
remember if
agenda.
it was That's on our agenda, so wait until.
So wait.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll speak about the budget cuts right now. So hello, I am Lisa Fell, the current PTO president at Washington School, and I'm representing parents and teachers at Washington tonight. When considering budget cuts for next year, please avoid any further increases in the student-to-teacher ratios in the lower grades, just like Meg said earlier. We have experienced the enormous effect that the current increases have made on the quality of teaching that can be offered. The teachers are really feeling it. There's more time spent on getting the kids settled down and discipline issues. They're not able to approach each child with the same attention to little details like correcting the way a child is using his or her pencil. There's less physical space in the room with an extra table group, which impedes on the reading or art areas or just fitting on the rug at reading. For the first half of the year, there were not enough materials for each child, so the teachers had to spend lots of time making copies of books. There have been more kids outside at recess time in the same amount of space with the same amount of supervision, which has turned into more discipline problems. And the list goes on, but I'll stop there. When we asked the teachers whether they would prefer to have a teacher's assistant or less kids in their class, they unanimously prefer less kids. The teachers have a lot on their plates already with the many curriculum changes in the past 3 years and the accountability with assessments. So the bigger class size just compounds the responsibilities. And to top it off, there were no paid aides at all this year. The teachers are really feeling taken advantage of, and this is definitely affecting the quality of their teaching abilities. Over time, this will undoubtedly affect test scores. One recommendation to save money would be to postpone adopting a new language arts curriculum. This would be preferable to the teachers. Several years back, we went to 20-1 for a reason. Going back up is counterproductive and not worth the negative consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fell.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Cayenne Pepper Smith, followed by Jill Padilla-Vaccaro, followed by Corey Bream.
That's pronounced Cayenne.
Sorry.
Pepper Smith. No problem. It's the reason I was given the nickname Pepper. And it is the name that I used as the general manager of the Nevada Theater, and I was under contract as a drama and French teacher at Nevada Union High School. My public comments are to commend Dr. Carol Miller. She is a consummate professional. She knows the special education laws and is able to collaborate, coordinate, communicate, and cooperate with staff and parents on behalf of our children. She had a very short tenure, but had a great influence, and I'm sorry she's leaving. I would like to welcome Dr. Michelle Britton Bass. Dr. Britton Bass, is known throughout the county. She was the head of the Antioch Department of Education, teacher training, and was a member of the CPAC that was disbanded because we were very good and a little bit too uppity for this district. Her appointment is an exciting opportunity for special education reform. I would like to mention that this New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2009, the helicopter that Dr. Sarvis discussed hovered over my house because there was another rollover off the cliff across from my driveway. And I'm asking that Annette Cordero, who is the board representative to the County School District Boundary Line Committee, please initiate a correction of the map. 3400 Gibraltar Road is a sacred Chumash site. It was the old Sunburst. It's 15 minutes from downtown Santa Barbara. It's an hour and a half from the school district that you demand that we send our children to. It's in between Gibraltar Rock, known as Climbing Rock, and the hang gliders Skyport, where the accidents happen, and it was the site of 4 deaths.
20 seconds.
I don't have time to continue my comments because time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Jill Padilla-Vaccaro and Corey Bream.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jill Padilla-Vaccaro. Dr. Sarvis, thank you very much for including the announcement about the internet safety presentation taking place on January 28th. I appreciate that. I just wanted to point out a couple things additionally. This presentation is being offered free of charge to all parents, teachers, and administrators of all schools in the community. The Santa Barbara School District has been amazing in collaborating with the Santa Barbara Education Foundation and Make It Work on this presentation. We are currently this week and next week, we will be circulating nearly 5,000 flyers out home with each K through 6th grade student in the Santa Barbara School District, hoping to reach as many parents as we can. The printing costs have been donated and covered by businesses in the community. So there's been a great community effort to bring this presentation free of charge to everyone. So we hope to pack the Marjorie Luke Theater. I also want to note that this is there will be a Spanish translator there. Headsets will be provided as well. So there's no reason for anyone not to be there. This is a flyer. Front is, or I should say front is Spanish, back is English. It doesn't really matter. But you can contact, I hope this is okay, if you want to get a hold of me and you want some flyers or you have questions, you can probably call Barbara Kiani. She has all my contact information. I'm glad to answer any questions anyone has on the board or otherwise. I'd just like to get the word out as much as possible. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Vaccaro?
Yeah.
Dr. Hayden, can you give her the book I just gave you, and I'll get you another one? I have already a copy of it. Oh, okay. Can you? Because it's on internet safety from the federal government, and it's free. Okay. So I have about 95 copies, and if you need them after you look at it, let me know, and you can have the 95 copies.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bream?
Good evening, Board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to welcome Michelle Britton Bass. Thank you. Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. Hi. We're glad to have you aboard. We hope that you do fill those shoes. They're a large set of shoes. I am very sorry to see Carol Miller go. And Bob, you said this is the direction of special ed, and I really hope so, but I'm not as completely positive as you on the sense that I really think Carol was a unique individual who did a lot of work, and I don't want to discount that. So definitely big shoes to fill. So I'm sorry to see her go, and I'm glad for all the changes we've had so far. I do wish to continue that stakeholders meeting. There was some noise in the room to discontinue that. I don't think they're done. I don't even think they've presented you a plan yet and have finalized that plan or a way to enact it. So please encourage the stakeholders meeting to continue, if you would,
We'll
please.
talk about that when we come to the agenda item.
Great. Eric, I know that the Special Ed Advisory Committee has asked for information on where all the ERA funds have gone. It would be wonderful to get that information. It doesn't seem to be as readily available as we'd like online, and if you could help us, we're worried that some of that money's gone maybe where it shouldn't be going. You're not allowed to comment during public comment. So he is...
We have an agenda item, I believe, later that we probably could discuss budgetary items under.
Okay. Class size, yes, please. Don't increase our class size, cut our year by a couple days. Forget the new program on language arts. Do anything but increase class size. It's been really hard on the teachers. I volunteer 1 day a week on my 1 day off. It's amazing the different energy from the teachers, and they are wiped out by Friday. So I'm not sure that would be the way to cut the budget. And thank you again for Debbie Keys Thomas. She's doing a great job as a program specialist. And our general ed teacher is really inclusive. If there's any way to make a room and have people observe her behaviors as being an inclusive teacher, that's what you need. You need to see how she does it instead of reprimanding or talking about the wrong way. Maybe set an example of a good way. And those rooms with the double mirrors have been suggested. And it's a great way to teach other teachers how to teach. I'd just like to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bream. That concludes public comment.
C4, acceptance of donations.
Move to approve with appreciation, or, I'm sorry, move to accept with appreciation.
I'll second that.
Discussion? A special thank you to the John Bauer Foundation for a donation to Harding Early Years Program for $130,000. Every donation is important, but $130,000 is way out there. So thank you to the John S. Bauer Foundation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. On the consent calendar, D, anybody have any to withdraw?
Just D1, the November 24th minutes in particular. I need to pull those, or I can correct it now if you prefer.
If it's a simple correction now?
It's a simple correction. On item D4, public comment that was listed under C3, general public comment, needs to move under F1. It should have been
I'm
listed.
sorry, which date was it?
November 24th.
November 24th, item
Item C3, the list of people who
C3,
spoke under
yes.
general public comment, in fact, spoke under F1.
F1, okay.
And the only speaker under general public comment was Kate Smith, so that needs to be changed. So I would,
I had one other thing. If I look at this correctly, there are 4 sets of minutes rather than 3 sets of minutes. Assuming that the special meeting of the board at Dos Pueblos was a separate meeting from the
Right.
one with the city council. So it
right, so
looks
there's
like
one on the front and there's one on the back.
Yeah, so there's
separate.
4 sets of minutes, and I think the agenda really calls out maybe for 3, but there are 4. Okay, any other items to be taken back? Dr. Noel?
D5, D8, and D15, please.
D5, D8, D15. Any others? Do I have a motion to approve the remaining?
So moved.
With the corrections to the minutes, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Under the action item, we have a time certain at 8 o'clock for number E3. And we have 2 items before it, and both are likely to be extensive. What is the direction of the board? Any thoughts? Do you want to take up the 3 items that Dr. Noel just held back? And then at 8 o'clock have the public hearing?
May I suggest that we go right away to E1,
Okay.
since we have a lot of people in the audience for that item?
Can I stop it at 8 o'clock?
Certainly.
I'm just wondering, do I
Well,
need to stop at 8 o'clock?
I
Yes.
believe it'll be over by about 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Maybe 5 after.
Okay, we'll go for it. E1, approval of the memorandum of understanding regarding Harney School and the University of California, Santa Barbara, Gravetz Graduate School of Education, intent to develop a university partnership school.
Well, we have a historic MOU in front of us, Board. You have a revision, which is the latest version of this MOU. There are a couple of changes. Some are fairly minor, but they're as a result of various comments about the MOU.
Can you tell us which ones they, oh, there, okay, there it is.
And I would like Robin Sawaski, our Associate Superintendent, to introduce our presenters.
Okay, and I can easily explain what the corrections are too, if you'd like that. So we have a couple of very important people here today, and I know that you're all aware of the work that's been going on, and in my agenda item, I explained that we've been doing ongoing work. Some of you have been involved in that as far as the design for the partnership, Harding Partnership. Let's see, it's actually called the Harding University Partnership School. And so the MOU is before you, and I'm going to introduce first Sally Kingston to come up, Dr. Sally Kingston, and then principal of Harding School, and then she will introduce our other guests tonight. Sally?
Three of us will speak tonight unless there's obviously speaker comments. Dean Jane Close Conley will introduce Chancellor Henry Yang, and then Jane will speak again. I'm going to ask if you'll just put the overview up. I'm just going to contextualize where we've been and where we are. You've seen this graphic before. And as you know, there's been a question about the many different efforts at Harding School and how they relate. So starting at the left, this really tries to combine both our work on the laboratory school, or we're going to call it partnership school, and the International Baccalaureate program. And on the far right, you'll see that we really are looking at the ultimate outcomes of the International Baccalaureate School as the ultimate outcomes for our partnership efforts as well. And where we are right now is straight in the middle, January 2010. And before you, you do have a memo of understanding that is a result of, if you look across the top, various smaller meetings, which we've called design team meetings, that have included district representatives, Santa Barbara Teachers Association when available, university teachers, myself, and Dean Close Conley. And as well as that, we've had broader meetings with parent representatives. You've also been involved. Thank you to board members. I don't know if I use this. And we had a really great parent meeting and getting a lot of input that's reflected in the memo of understanding, some more concrete ideas of how that would look at the school. And the other thing I just want to draw your attention to is that on Friday, January 22nd, one of the unintended but wonderful consequences of this process is that our leadership team, one of the teachers said, what if the entire school went to the university? So on January 22nd, every student preschool through 6th grade will be going to the University of California at Santa Barbara, and we will memorialize this partnership, we hope, at that time. And students will be going off and engaging in grade level activities at the California Nanotechnology Institute, the Material Science Department, and I believe this has been a UCSB-wide effort and lots of interest to make it safe for students, to make it relevant, and to make it available for us. So we're very excited about that, and lots of other interesting university and college readiness activities among teachers, thought of by teachers at the school. So we're right here. I would not add anything to our plates more than keeping what we have going through the end of June, and then really working through the summer to see if there's pieces that we would modify or change for next year in accordance with the MOU. One of the simple things we've done on the ground is to look at how we place student teachers, and we're doing that on teams. So if the 4th grade team has 3 teachers, we'll put 3 student teachers with them, and it really increases the collaboration across the team. So some of those things we've started doing already. So here's where we are. I'm going to introduce Dr. Jane Close Conley, who's been a wonderful partner. So thank you for being here. And I just want to say thank you for the Harding community who's here tonight to show their support.
Thank you. I have the privilege of introducing a person who needs no introduction to you, Dr. Henry Yang, who's been our chancellor for 15 years. And in addition to being a world-renowned engineer, he's also been passionately interested and supportive of this project. So, Dr. Yang, will you come to the podium?
It is my great honor to speak before the Santa Barbara Board of Education upon this approval, upon this day for the approval of MOU to establish the Harding University Partnership School. There's a long and a successful history of school and university partnerships that have led to the outstanding achievement, especially among children from economically disadvantaged environments. Examples of partnership schools can be found across the UC system, including UCLA and UC Davis, and across the United States, associated with the most distinguished land-grant public universities. It is the right time to launch this effort to create opportunities for the Harding and the university communities. Harding School and the Gewurz School have been building this partnership for 3 years now. The establishment of a university partnership school is the next logical step in our relationship. Several recent national reports have called for the Ivory Tower and the Little Red Schoolhouse to join forces in offering teacher candidates authentic residency experiences, in offering practicing educators access to cutting-edge research, professional development, and access to advanced degrees relevant to improving their practices. In offering university faculty immersion in 21st century schooling realities to hone their research questions and program development toward a greater relevance. The University Partnership School will address each of these mandates. The partnership is a visible and a concrete example of UC Santa Barbara's permanent commitment to pre-K through 12 education in our region, and is supported by work done across the university, including outreach by research faculty, academic preparation, and student affairs. The choice of the University Partnership School to adopt the International Baccalaureate curriculum is an excellent match to the UC Santa Barbara Teacher Education Program, with its emphasis on inquiry, reflection, autonomy, purpose, higher levels of thinking, and continuous testing of evidence. So this is a very exciting day for us and for UC Santa Barbara as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the Chancellor said everything I would ever want to say about this. I want to tell you 4 things about why we want to do it, okay? And when we know it's the right thing to do. Both UC Santa Barbara, Gewurz Graduate School of Education, and Harding School are both excellent organizations with great promise and energy to make a difference in our world, and specifically for the children and families of Santa Barbara. A focus on incremental change is now insufficient to meet the challenges of the day. More of the same kind of interventions and programs will not meet 21st century challenges. Only a commitment to transformational change will be successful in this rapidly evolving world, and we feel like the University Partnership represents that. Also, we have a lot to learn from one another, and that's probably the most important reason for us to do it. And finally, we feel at the university and with our partners at Harding that it really does take a village to educate a child, to support family welfare, and guarantee the future of our community. We pursue this partnership as a visible sign that we are in the same village with Harding School. We know that while our every future step is not clear at this moment, our commitment to stay the course with Harding is absolutely clear and firm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have public comment?
Yes, we have several public comments, speakers.
I'd like to limit it to 2 minutes on this round.
Okay. Tina Sloan, followed by Willis Copeland, followed by Tane Close Conley. Oh, I'm sorry, Jane, I apologize.
Is that it? Hello, my name is Tina Sloan. I'm the director of the Teacher Education Program at UC Santa Barbara, and it has been my immense pleasure and honor to be working with the Harding School faculty and UCSB faculty over the last couple of years to plan this program for Harding School. More than ever, we need to understand the ways in which particular kinds of teacher preparation are going to make the most effective teachers. And we have an opportunity here to work closely with a true partner in understanding that. We also know there's lots of emerging research on the benefits of having student teachers in classrooms for particular kinds of co-teaching models and other sorts of things that really provides better benefits for children when we have student teachers in the classroom. We also have the opportunity to have lots of other undergraduate students in classrooms and really come to understand what it can mean when we place all of these professionals in a classroom with a strong mentor teacher and provide the best kinds of individual opportunities and attention for kids and overall the best outcomes for kids. So I'm very excited about this partnership, and I look forward to the kinds of things that we can do together here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Willis Copeland, followed by Carol Schweizer.
My name is Willis Copeland. I'm a faculty member out at UCSB in the Converse Graduate School of Education. I'm in my 38th year there as a professor. And I have to say that in those 38 years, I cannot think of a single development that I consider more exciting for us at the university than this partnership. We faculty members are very excited about it. We see a lot of possibilities. But I'd like to call something else to the board's attention tonight, and that's from the Harding point of view instead of the university point of view. It might be possible to make some analogies. If you think of Harding as a teaching school where people learn to be teachers as well as the pupils learn to be adults, analogy between that and a teaching hospital, a teaching medical facility. And we all know that people find it unfortunately necessary when they come down with different diseases to travel perhaps across the country to find a medical school that can help them with their problems. It's at these schools that the best care is found. What is not recognized is that at each one of those medical schools, there's a community around it that benefits from the existence of that school, and and people's medical care is heightened because of that presence. We see a parallel here. The university will certainly benefit by this association. But the Harding community, the students, the parents, the teachers will benefit as well, and we're excited for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Carol Schweizer, followed by Lane Wheeler.
Good evening. I'm Carol Schwitzer. I'm a teacher at Harding School, 19-year teacher, also a member of the neighborhood of Harding School, and both my daughters attended there. And I've been a member of this visioning team for the UCSB partnership. I want to, from the Harding School side, want to speak to this and parallel the comments that this is just about the most exciting thing. It is the most exciting thing that's ever happened in my mind in the 19 years I've been at Harding School. Most exciting development. Every teacher dreams of having a partner that they can talk to, trade ideas with, step in when the other person is puzzled, and so on. And I get that opportunity as a cooperating teacher of student teachers called Teacher Candidates at the university. It's just been wonderful to me to have the energy, the enthusiasm, the new ideas come in, and not only that, but the support of the entire not just the teacher education program, but the whole Graduate School of Education, because with my student teachers come the opportunity, as Dr. Yang said, to have access to cutting edge, to professors, new learning, training, and so on, which allows me to get the sense of lifting up from the work is so down in it, and of lifting up, looking around, looking at getting perspective on what we're all about, what we're doing, and having access to that is wonderful. And what I see this project is doing is extending, deepening, enlarging, and enriching the scope of the teacher education program to include many projects, many research projects, and many other exciting projects. And I think any school would be excited and delighted to have this happen. But I'm so especially excited that it's Harding School, not just because it's my school, but because it represents since our school is a Title I school and a 95% Spanish-speaking family school, what it's saying to me is that the university which represents wealth and privilege in a way is saying to everyone, welcome to full-fledged membership in our society. Welcome to access to the mainstream of our society. You don't have to be already an established member of it.
Thank you, Ms. Schwitzer. Lane Wheeler.
Lane Wheeler, Santa Barbara Teachers Association. I too would like to add the association and the union's support for this project. We too have been partners in the work that's been brought forth, and I would like to compliment the certificated staff at Harding School. Thank you all for your great work and the support that you've provided. There is some exemplary leadership, I think, that needs to be acknowledged also, and I'll start with Dr. Kingston. My salute to you, and to the university through Dr. Conley, Payne, as her friends know her, and we would like to salute them all and enjoy the partnership that we've shared in this. Certainly our part in this has been to protect and watch over the working conditions of the certificated staff there. I would like to bring one addition to the MOU, I believe only as a grammatical improvement. And on page 2 at the bottom where it says partnership school, other school, blah, blah, teachers responsibility, and will not violate the collecting and bargaining unit. I believe it might be better to read and not violate the collecting and bargaining agreement of the unit members, because violating the members could be problematic. Without further ado, I would ask for your support, and we look forward to continued partnership, working with the university and Dr. Kingston and the staff as issues arise around working conditions and finding the best way. We think this is a very inventive and progressive proposal, and we add our support to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler.
That concludes public comment.
To the board, Mrs. Parker?
I think we need to go to our time certain item at this point, so pause it.
Is that the direction?
Excuse me, Mr. Heron?
Yes.
I believe taking the item early would be a problem. I think making it the first new item after 8 o'clock would not be a problem.
Thank you.
All right, I can go ahead and jump in there.
Go ahead then.
I waved my pencil first. Like everybody else in this room, I'm really excited about this process moving forward. I love the name. I love everything that's going on with it, so that's great. I did have one question about that, and I don't know if Ms. Sawaski can answer this or board members that were present as part of the discussion, and that is on page 3 in the paragraph that starts with the partnership school will offer admission priority. The second sentence is, in accordance with the district interdistrict transfer policy 5117, enrollment will not be offered to students residing outside the boundaries of the elementary district. So that would mean that student teachers or graduate students, professors that are directly involved would not be able to send their students to this school if they don't live within the Santa Barbara Elementary District. And because we do allow district employees that live outside, I know that had been kind of up in the air, so I'm curious as to how the discussion went around that.
Do board members want to respond? Or, I mean, that we talked about this, and we felt that because the rest of the elementary school district does not allow, except for those very few exceptions, which these would be as well, that we would put this in. We're happy to change that if that's something that the rest of the board, or the board as a group, would rather have it fall in with the other employees of the district, which would allow a few people that do not live in our district.
In fact, that statement is new to this draft.
Yes.
That is one of the major, that's one of the major, not major, but it's one of the revisions that is in here. And the others are really minor.
Mrs. Deacon?
I was in on that discussion, although at the time I think we didn't take it maybe as far as we might have, and certainly in light of the fact that it's connected to this idea of employees of the district tangentially through the MOU, I certainly would be open to including members of the UCSB community who are part of the Harding School Partnership to have inter-district transfers be a possibility there as well.
Well, I'll continue on with that. I mean, I think it would depend on the number of students, because obviously there could be a huge financial impact if it turns out that there are dozens of students that are involved. But I would be interested in changing that and deleting that and having it be as described by the district intra-district transfer policy and inter-district transfer policy in the first sentence. And then take a look at the inter-district transfer policy and see if we can change that, include the Harding Partnership School in the inter-district transfer policy, and perhaps put a cap on the number of students that can come in under that, just so that we can monitor it for a year or two and see what that looks like.
Originally, the plan had a limit of 6 students
Mhm.
in it, and that was for a total of 6 new students
Mhm.
under this policy.
To be clear about your proposal, you're recommending that we insert and inter-district?
I would like to eliminate the second sentence
And we
completely.
yes.
And then in the first sentence, change the partnership school will offer admission priority as described by the district intra-district transfer policy 5116.1 and inter-district transfer policy 5117 to children whose parents are directly involved, knowing that we'll have to come back then at a later date and look at 5117. I mean, as it stands, 5117 says they can't come in.
Yeah. Are we talking about all parents or all faculty, all program developers, all researchers, period? Or is this supposed to be talking about UCSB
This is-
researchers,
this
program
is
developers?
Whose parents are directly involved?
That could be me.
That's a good
if-
question. It
yeah,
could
that
be.
could be me if my children were
Yeah,
there.
so I would insert the word whose parents are employed or enrolled at UCSB and are directly involved with a partnership school.
Do you want to put any limit on the number at this point?
Well, I think that as it stands, we're actually still saying that no children can come in. So we can address that when we look at 5117 and see what 5117 would look like.
I recall
Deacon?
that the reason we took out the cap of 6 was because we thought this would be a fluid number depending on enrollment from the neighborhood, other students that would be eligible for transfer. So it seemed overly prescriptive to limit it to just 6. And so I'd like to leave it open and watch it play out for a year and see how many, how that
Well,
falls out.
I know from UCSB standpoint, they were trying to be nice to us because we had told them prior to this that, hey, there's no way you're going to get that. And so they were trying to be really nice by putting the 6 in, and we're really nicer by taking it out. So as it stands, second sentence eliminated, and after the word,
It'd be after the
after the word
policy number.
yeah, after the word intra-district and
Well, no, after that first policy number, the
Okay.
parenthesis, number 5116.1, in paren, and inter-district transfer policy number 5117, paren, would be inserted at that point.
Okay. And whose parents are enrolled or involved
Enrolled
Or
Employed
or employed?
or enrolled at UCSB
and are.
and are directly involved.
Okay. Is that a motion, Mrs. Parker?
Well, I'm sure other board members might have other things that they want to raise at this point.
I'm
So
talking about just that paragraph.
if we want to make a motion just to change that.
I'd like to comment.
Okay, Dr. Noel?
I think I agree with the concept that we have to revisit the transfer policies because this has been both before and now a difficult paragraph. And the prior version did not have 5117, which was a concern to me because 5117 could preclude all of Goleta, and that could have substantial impact on university family participation. So if we revisit those policies, I think then Ms. Parker's wording works very nicely, and I would certainly support it.
Okay, how about the rest of the document?
I wanted to, as long as I'm going at it, I'm happy finally to see the indemnification paragraphs make sense together.
Thank you.
That's very nice and clarifies it. I had a few other issues that they were minor. They've been changed, and I'm quite satisfied with that. I just wanted to comment particularly on Dr. Connolly's statement, because nothing could ring truer to me that we're not going to solve our problems by incremental change, and it's transformational change. And I have felt that that's what Harding and the principal and the staff are trying to accomplish, and this is a major step in the right direction, and to be commended. And I think whatever we have to do to facilitate this and to make it so there are not little details that are going to get in the way as we go down the road, I think that's very important. So, thank you.
I would like to make one comment. When Dr. Sarvis and I talked about the agenda a week ago, this was going to be put on the agenda as a conference item on the basis that it would be wise to talk about it and then come back for approval in 2 weeks. And so that's what was going to happen. But then we got to talking about it, and this event's happening on the 22nd. We're going to have how many children out there to sign an MOU? We thought maybe we better do it before our next meeting. So we put it on as an action item, but I want to clarify that that wouldn't normally be how we do something of this significance. And I'm very happy that so many of the board members put in their comments and changes were made before it got to this meeting. And I think that was an important part of making this discussion, much more positive. Dr. Newell?
An afterthought, or a main thought, actually. I would like to see us make more extensive use of the experience that's happening at Harding and getting that disseminated out to our other schools. Has nothing to do with this MOU. I would like to see us consider this a precedent and start to consider the possibilities for a junior high school and a high school in some kind of partnership with the University of California. I don't think we should stop with elementary school. I think we should be thinking big and thinking transformationally.
Now do I have a motion? Oh, no, Dr. Okay. Susan, Mrs. Deacon, did you have a comment?
Well, I just had one question before we make a motion. I like very much the name, the Harding University Partnership School. We had been approached previously about changing the name of the school. It appears to me if we approve this, we may be formalizing a new name, and so I just want to make sure, or I want to ask if that in fact is the case. But, I mean, the document refers to it this way throughout, and I like the name. I'm in favor of that, but I just want to make sure that we're in agreement that that's the new name going forward, if that's how we're referring to it in the MOU.
In fact, I'm glad you're highlighting that. Yes, that is.
May we not submit it as a formal change with the California Department of Education? I would like to see that. It goes with transformation.
Certainly. Yeah. I would bring back an item agenda so that that could be done.
Okay.
Yes.
A motion?
I move to adopt the MOU as amended by Mrs. Parker.
Can you add in Mrs. Parker and Mr. Wheeler
Yes,
with
of
his
course.
suggestion?
Yeah, oh yeah, Mr. Wheeler. Pardon me, Mr. Wheeler.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much for all of you from the UCSB community. We really appreciate it. We appreciate everything that the Harding School went through. I see Jane Sweeney's here, and I know she was a leader in the effort. and yet she's retiring before she sees the benefits. So we just approved her retirement not 5 minutes ago. So Jane, thank you for your work. And Dr. Yang and Mrs. Yang, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, I think we now have a time certain item. E3.
Dave Hetjonk will make this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis, board members. This easement was on a schedule for a previous agenda. However, when we moved the meeting to Santa Barbara High School, it became a special meeting and not a regular meeting. And the education code is clear. It needs to be a regular meeting of the Santa Barbara school districts. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Herron if he open a hearing and ask for any public comment, and then based on that public comment or lack thereof, he can close the hearing and we can move on to the second part of the agenda item.
Okay, I hereby declare an open meeting, public meeting. Any comments from the public? We have no comments from the public, so go forward.
Okay, thank you. After the public hearing, then the next step would be for me to ask the board to approve the contract of right-of-way for the permanent easement at Monroe Elementary School.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
So I guess I closed the public hearing? Okay. Okay, E2. Second reading and adoption of board policy and administrative regulation 5116-1, intra-district open enrollment.
Michael Gonzalez, our Director of Student Services and Compliance, will make this presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the cover memo. With your permission, I'll begin about the bottom 1/3 where it says first, so that'll give you a clear understanding of what the current, the proposed revisions to the board policy on intra-district open enrollment says. With your permission, it says first, the general enrollment priorities section reiterates the established practice that students residing in a given attendance area or who already attend a particular school will not be displaced by transfers. In addition, in this section continues the practice of recognizing a priority for transfers initiated by board action and for those special education placements that result from an individualized education plan. Second, the option to transfer section set forth in no...
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Scudero?
I'm sorry, I just didn't bring my copy of the one that you sent today.
Uh-huh.
And so I was wondering if we have any additional copies of those.
Is there only one copy needed?
I can make more copies.
We have more here. We have
Okay.
more.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, very good. Oh, it pays off to have public copies, huh?
Thank you. I'm down at the bottom of the first page where it says second. The option to transfer section sets forth the NCLB requirements governing transfers out of a school. A, in program improvement, those who are identified for corrective action or restructuring. B, where a student is a victim of violent crime. Or C, when a school is designated by the California Department of Education as persistently dangerous. Just to clarify, a school would earn the persistently dangerous title if a gun was brought on campus. That's what would initiate that particular designation. In addition, this section maintains that the current policy of allowing transfers out of schools in special circumstances where attendance in the current school might be harmful or dangerous to the student, and where transfers are recommended by either a school attendance review board or by the county child welfare probation department or a social service agency. Then I refer you to the third and final paragraph that I'll read. The third section covers traditional transfer requests to a school outside the student's attendance area. As before, when the requested school reaches capacity, enrollment decisions are to be based on a lottery system as outlined in Administrative Regulation 5116.1, which remains unchanged, except for the transportation. We did have to revise that paragraph to reflect the new BP that reflects California State Boards of Education guidance. The priority order under revised BP 5116.1 remains the same. Students whose parent or guardian is assigned to that school as his or her primary place of employment for 3 or more hours per day. Siblings of students already enrolled in the school. Students of district employees not assigned to the school. English learners transferring from a high English learner enrollment school to a lower one. Additionally, a new category has been established for students whose parents are employed by an entity which is a party to a board-approved memorandum of understanding for program activities at a school to which such a transfer is sought. The approval of the MOU with Harding is such an example. Finally, after all these categories, all other transfer requests will be considered. I want to share with you that, as you know, there's been a series of discussions between staff and board members about priority. I do want to share with you that, thank you, Board President Ed Hearn. He pointed out the administrative regulation actually does talk about multiple priorities. I'm sharing with you that we need very clear directions from the board about how the lotteries will be established. Mr. Heron was able to attend a number of lotteries that were held last year, both at the elementary level as well as the high school level. And staff is seeking clarification for that. One more item I want to add to all of this. It is not embedded in this policy, but as you know, there's been a number of discussions between the superintendent and board members as well as district staff about the idea of designating program improvement schools. Some districts have taken the opportunity to say, all right, if you request a program improvement request at the elementary level, you go to this school. There has been considerable discussion about what school would be designated. We did the same thing with the junior highs, and we did the same thing with the high school. And Dr. Sarvis, with your permission, I'll speak to what the thinking is right now.
Certainly, that'd be fine.
Right now, the thinking is that perhaps it would be appropriate to designate, if I am an elementary parent, student, and I want to transfer out of a school that's been designated as program improvement, that the district would designate one school in particular, for example, the Santa Barbara...
I'm sorry, both schools of choice.
Which means the Open Alternative School as well as the Santa Barbara Community Academy School, a year-round school, and a traditional calendar school. Those would be my choices. If I request a program improvement, the parents would know that that's where we would be sending your children. At the junior high level, we don't have much of a choice. If I wanted to leave an existing program improvement at junior high school, I would be sent to La Colina. And at the high school level, we don't also have much of a choice here. If I requested a transfer out of an existing program improvement school, I would be sent to Dos Pueblos, with the caveat, that's very important to understand, that we did this year place a enrollment limitation on Dos Pueblos at 2,400 students. They're currently not quite at that, but there's a very real possibility that we would get to that very rapidly. That's not embedded in any of the documents you have seen, but it would be critical for the board, for the superintendent to make that decision very quickly and direct staff to implement those kinds of changes.
Well, let me continue the last school, the high school, because if we reach the capacity of 2,400 students at Dos Pueblos, then we really have no other non-program improvement school to go to other than continuation schools or Alta Vista. And people should know up front that if we don't have the capacity at Dos Pueblos, then Alta Vista would be the next designated school.
Mr. Herron?
Dr. Noel?
I'm a little confused by that. I thought that the requirements of No Child Left Behind were that you simply had to make room, even if you had to build new facilities.
And we do have room at Alta Vista.
Mrs. Parker?
My larger concern is that Dos Pueblos may be program improvement this fall. So what sort of are you looking at, like a neighboring district agreement? What are you thinking, or would it just simply be Alta Vista as the choice for a non-program improvement school?
At this point, there is no discussion about a cooperative agreement with a neighboring district. And logistically, if you think about that, logistically, it would be very difficult, I believe, to convince a parent that the alternative is, for example, Carpinteria High School. All right, and so as the superintendent has indicated, we currently believe that we'd have sufficient room if we reach that 2,400 limit at Dos Pueblos at the Alta Vista programs. We'd have to see what happens in the fall to see if that plan actually worked out. I want to say one other thing. As you know, we have very firm deadlines for the intra-district transfers. That's a March 31st deadline. So we have roughly about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, to make this decision, but we really must make it very soon.
Dr. Noel?
I'm still back where I asked Dr. Sarvis a question. You mean that does that mean that we could continue to allow other students to go to Dos Pueblos by choice while referring students who are at, everybody's
Program
okay.
improvement, that's right.
Got it.
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Parker?
I wanted to say thank you so much to Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Price. I know this has been a lot of work, and there were a lot of questions about it before. I want to be, first of all, the AR calls for listing what these program improvement overflow sites are for students who may be program improvement but don't fall into the lottery priority categories, and maybe they don't get their first choice. There'd be absolutely a place for them, but they're no longer a priority in the lottery. And so I appreciate that you've figured out what the schools are, and I hope that all of the school sites will know that and have that listed officially, so that when parents go in with questions about program improvement transfers, that they can see that, they can understand that if they don't get into their first choice, there will be choices for them. I also just want to be really clear to the public that this is bifurcating, because I like to use that word, the program improvement transfers away from the lottery transfers, so that program improvement transfers would essentially fall under what is now priority number 6, all other requests, and which essentially places them where we had put them in June. We had lowered them down and had it be employees and siblings up at the top. So I want to be sure that that's really clear. I would like
make it clearer. Can you repeat that?
Well, essentially, that if you are applying for a transfer for a student who's only transferring because he or she is at a program improvement school, they would fall into lottery category 6, which is all other transfer requests. But they also fall under the option to transfer category, which is they absolutely will be placed at a non-program improvement school.
But they have top priority.
No. They do not. I would like to request that we make a change to number 5, which is this stab at including the Harding University Partnership School.
I'm sorry, Ms. Parker, you're looking at page 3 of 5, is that correct, in the
Yes.
list of priorities?
Yeah, in the
Okay.
list of priorities, that's where I am. As it's written now, students of parents, guardians employed by an entity which is party to a board-approved memorandum. I don't know that everybody that's involved is going to be employed. They may be students that are simply enrolled. And also, this would open it up to any UCSB employee. And so I understand the desire to make this a broad category, but because we only have this one in this particular instance, my preference would be to narrow it back down again and to have that sentence changed to students of parents, guardians, enrolled or employed, who are enrolled or employed by UCSB and directly involved with program activities at the Harding University Partnership School, which mirrors the MOU language.
I have a question on your conclusion a minute ago. If you look at 5116.1 on page 1 under option to transfer, it's very clear that program improvement schools fall in that category as a priority. And if you look at the lead-in to priorities for transfer requests on page 2, it says, except for transfers under the preceding provisions, all other applications for enrollment fall in the following lottery. So it seems to me that everything above priorities for transfer has priority. It's because it says, except for the ones.
It does. It does in the sense that they are, they will be placed at another school, which is what it says in here. They are not part of the lottery.
Mr. President, can I jump in for just a
Yes.
second? Because in working with Mr. Gonzalez to reword this, I think we grappled with the same thing that I suspect you are, and that is, it's one thing to say that someone has a priority or a right to move away from a school. That's very different than the discussion about which school they will wind up attending. So when there is a discussion about priority, it's very easy to confuse a priority for moving away from a school as opposed to a priority to be able to attend a particular school. And in reference to what you're talking about, under the NCLB transfer options, there is a priority or a requirement that these children be allowed to move away from a school, period. However, the question of which school they shall thereafter attend is a separate question, and while parent preferences are taken into account, they are not binding, and the district has discretion there.
Good.
So I don't know if that helps.
It helps very much. I'm very pleased. I did not read it that way, and I'm very happy that Mrs. Parker did. Any other, Mrs. Deacon?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Price, because that was my question too, is whether the law in fact requires us to allow parents to put children at certain schools or just any school that's not program improvement. So that answers that question. As a practical matter, how often do we get requests from students specifically because they're in a program improvement school?
Very often. And let me share with you that in reference to Mr. Price's remarks, that what we anticipate will happen is that if we interpret properly the comments from council, the there probably will not be room for program improvement students' requests to actually attend Dos Pueblos. As you folks know, that campus is in wide demand right now. The bulk of the requests that we are receiving to this date upstairs are for admission to Dos Pueblos. So I just want us all to be aware that that's the case right now. And what Dr. Sarvis mentioned about overflow to Alta Vista is very likely a reality.
When you asked for clarification on the lottery, was this bifurcation what you were specifically asking about?
I think with Mr. Price's clarification that if I can say, you may know that a email might have been sent to several board members with a request, prioritize them. And you now know, based on Mr. Price's comments, that indeed there's no longer internally within program improvement a need for multiple lotteries, that the others' lotteries would take precedence. I guess that's the best way to answer your question.
Mrs. Cadell?
I was grappling with a couple of things here. One was the, as we talked about the Harding School situation, this one is our intra-district policy. So the Harding School situation I'm not sure how that would typically apply, because I'm trying to think. I'm trying to figure out the logistics of how.
If I could clarify something that is kind of a tangent to this discussion, but very important for an earlier discussion. This policy essentially says if I'm presently residing within the Santa Barbara secondary school districts, I've got a priority to get myself over to Harding. But I share with you that it may not be necessary to modify the inter-district transfer, because as you know, there is an appeal process for that, and the board could deem that permitting folks outside of the Santa Barbara secondary district, outside of the elementary district, the board could grant, as it's done this year, permission to attend. And so we may not need to modify that existing board policy. We would simply require that the parents, the appropriate UCSB employees, file an appeal, and we would submit it over to you, and we go from there.
Okay, I understand that, although I think there are some problems with that. But my other concerns are about our priority, as we're talking about the list of priorities, our priority order. I have a bit of a philosophical concern about the concept that a student who is currently attending a school that is achieving at a satisfactory level could have a higher priority to transfer to another school, to a particular school, than a student who is currently attending a school that is in program improvement status. Philosophically, I don't agree with that. I think a student who's coming from a school where, and I don't want to blanket these because depending on what subcategory that student happens to fall into, they may be achieving very well. They may be receiving a very strong education at the PI school. But a student who might not be getting what they need at a school that is experiencing very low test scores, or in some cases not. I mean, we all know how the PI works. But I believe should have a higher priority to transfer to a non-PI school than a student who is attending a school that is already achieving quite well. So I'm looking at priority number 4 and priority, and priority number, 6 would be where the PI students would fall into. To me, I would give those students higher priority to transfer to a school other than a school of choice, because the schools of choice are designed to be exactly that. It shouldn't be their only choice. It should be, the schools of choice should be for families that really want to attend that particular school. So I have concerns about that. I think if we're giving priority to students who are already achieving success elsewhere, that makes me uncomfortable.
We do have public comment, so, Mrs. Parker?
I guess my question on that is, Mrs. Cordero, are you suggesting a new category, that after 5, there would be a new category 6 that instead of 2 all other transfer requests, there'd be a separate program improvement one and then all other transfer requests? Or are you, I'm not sure
I
what
guess
order
I
you're
would say
thinking.
yes, because I think a student who's asking to transfer because the school that they currently attend, or the school in their district, in their attendance area, is PI status, should have higher priority than a student who's asking to attend another school simply because they just want to go to that school. But I'm not sure that I would put it, after 5. But I do think it should be a separate category.
I guess my only thing with number 5 is that is specifically to Harding University Partnership School, which is a program improvement school, so you wouldn't be taking PI transfers to that school anyway.
Any other thought? I have one question, but let's go to public comment.
Okay, we have 2 2 speakers. Lisa Fell, followed by Kate Smith.
Hi, I'm back. Well, now my comments have changed a little from what I've heard tonight. I was going to ask, I was understanding the situation and why things were being changed to the order that they are. And I was going to ask that within the program improvement category, that there could be subcategories in there, including the employees, children, and the siblings like that, prioritized within the PI. But it sounds like that's already being taken care of. I mean, the way it sounds, transferring out of a school has priority, but transferring into a particular school has a different set of priorities. So so then I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Kate Smith.
President Herron, members of the Santa Barbara School Board. There's an important issue here that is never addressed, and that's the determination of the school district and school boundary lines, the maps, and the addresses. In November 2009, I asked Michael Gonzalez for the Santa Barbara School District boundary line map. The map has been created. It costs $2. There are no addresses. It's very rough, just most of the street names. In January 2009, I demanded that a proper map be created because when I met with Alan Hilton to arrange transportation for my special needs daughter, he gave me a map that didn't have the boundary line drawn on it. He offered to transport my daughter from a bus stop that he couldn't find, and that was 20 minutes past the school that I would be driving my daughter
Ms. Smith,
to.
are you addressing this policy? This item is on this particular policy.
Yes, but if you have a policy, you will, by law and by common sense, have to have a map and addresses that make your policy articulated. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you can't understand how I am talking on the topic, I'm afraid we're going to have a falling out. I'm afraid we have a failure to communicate. Do you not understand that you have to have a determination of the addresses of the school boundaries and the school district boundaries? Otherwise, you can't tell the parents where they can go or can't go. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. How is it that Annette Cordero was allowed to use the power of the presidency to interrupt me and derail my comments? How is it she is allowed to do that?
Because I gave her permission. Can you go forward?
Okay, can you give me some more time? Because I have had to use my time to explain to her that I am on topic.
Okay, continue.
Okay. Alan Hilton ended up offering me $50 to transport my daughter to school. I then asked Michael Gonzalez for a list of the school boundary line addresses. He said it didn't exist. Then I said, of course it exists. He said he's working on it.
15 more seconds.
And then he called me a liar in front of his staff in the lobby of this administrative office. This is to let you know that the maps and the addresses are very important now that we are a basic aid district, and we can't have interdistrict transfers. All of the houses on Gibraltar Road have to go to Santa Ynez. They cannot be rebuilt.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
And they don't have a school district to go to. This is a class
That
action
concludes public
lawsuit
comment.
that you need to.
Board, we do have a map.
Is that the end of the public comment? I have one question. In your cover memo, basically the last paragraph, you say, as before, when the requested school reaches capacity. Now, I read, in one area, we very specifically talk about what capacity is. But in our board policy, we say we will not open more schools purely based upon intra-district transfers. So to me, that you could have a school that has 2 or 3 empty classrooms because we're not opening up any classes for intra-district, but yet here you say, and in the regulations we say, we're going to, until we reach the education code says reach capacity. Which is it? I mean, if we have 2 empty classrooms at a school that's not PI, to reach capacity, do we have to fill those classrooms with students, potentially intra-district or PI students?
Let me share with you that reaching capacity is actually a decision, a recommendation made by staff to the superintendent who will make that determination. Reaching capacity is actually a very complex issue to address in that I use the example of schools high schools, for example, that have a 6-period day. Students go to 6 periods. However, as you well know, it's not unusual for a teacher who's assigned a particular classroom that one of those, the teacher's preparation period is not filled with students. Capacity is a function of a number of studies and a number of documents, and it varies. And when staff makes a recommendation to the superintendent, it takes into account a bunch of different factors, a number of different factors. And so it's not easy for anyone right now to say, you know what, this is what capacity means. If we utilized every single classroom at a school site, at a high school, including using that classroom that's usually devoted to preparation time for a teacher, the capacity at a school changes dramatically. If we only look at the 5 classes, 5 instructional periods in each class, and we leave the free period for the teachers to work on their preparation, then class size decreases significantly. So again, it's a series of recommendations made to the superintendent.
Well, let me try to make my question simpler. In the BP, it says, at elementary schools with attendant boundaries, additional classes shall be open based upon attendance area enrollment only, and not due to intra-transfer requests. But later on, we say, that there would be in the bottom of page 2, we will use a random unbiased selection whenever a school receives admission requests that are in excess of the school's capacity. To me, those are 2 different potential end results. Which one takes precedent? We have one policy that says we won't open anymore. We have another one that says we can go to capacity, whatever that might be.
The second piece of language that you were referring to, Mr. President, was added on account of 2008 revisions to the Ed Code that require that not only students be selected randomly without bias in a lottery, but that capacity likewise be determined in the same fashion. I believe that requirement can be readily distinguished from the earlier language that you referred to, which I don't know the derivation, but I read it to simply state that merely on account of requests that are made to transfer into a school, for example, outside of the NCLB mandate, there's no requirement to alter capacity. The determination of capacity is something that under the Ed Code, the district has fairly broad discretion to determine, taking into account a number of different factors. You don't, whatever that capacity is, you don't need to add to it because you have non-legally mandated transfer requests. Similarly, you don't need to alter capacity based upon non-mandatory requests because people want to move from one school to another where they don't happen to live. So I'm not sure that I see a direct conflict there. But they say different things, I grant you that.
Well, maybe I could answer that in this way. We have been operating based on the previous language, and we would intend to continue to operate on that basis, that no additional classes would be open based on that additional classes would be open based on attendance area enrollment only and not due to intra-district transfer requests.
Even though we had additional capacity.
Even though there might be a couple of empty classrooms at the school, that's right.
Mr. Herron, I mean, I think the key thing is actually the next sentence, which is, however, the district shall annually identify school sites that will accept program improvement transfers as needed. So you may not increase enrollment at a site where you could empty a computer lab and turn that into a classroom, but you will make sure that there's space available at a non-PI school.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
May I also, since the comment came up earlier, I would just as soon revisit the inter-district attendance policy and make that language very explicit about employees or students enrolled at UCSB and their ability to attend Harding.
Mr. Herron?
Yes, Mrs. Parker.
My quick question was Mr. Price, Mrs. Cordero has requested that there be a new number 6, which is students transferring, students from program improvement schools, and then a new 7, which would be to all other transfer requests. I would just like your feedback on that.
Would it be a new 5 or a new 6?
It'd be a new 6.
Okay. And if you want to do that, I think that's fine. And if you want to do a new 6, I would suggest that it might simply state students transferring pursuant to NCLB requirements under the preceding option to transfer section.
You guys got that right?
Can you say that again?
Robin's going to get it. Yeah. Go ahead and say it again.
Students transferring pursuant to NCLB requirements under the preceding option to transfer section. The only thing I just would want to point out about that is that percentage-wise, it's likely that a number of students who wish to transfer under the NCLB requirement from a PI school would already be covered under an earlier priority for English learners. But of course, that wouldn't necessarily cover the waterfront, so this would be, this would paint a wider swath.
Mr. Deacon?
When it comes to the high schools, because we currently only have one school that's not in program improvement, all students requesting transfers are coming from program improvement schools. So we would necessarily default to the preceding list of priority criteria, correct? So really what we're grappling with, I think, is the elementaries, because if we're going to set aside some schools as designated schools, although I would think many of the students requesting transfers at the elementary, I mean, they're all coming from program improvement schools, the vast majority of them. Is that not right?
The operational reality right now is that the number of program improvement requests, the reason they state is not often program improvement. It's all over the place for a number of different reasons, but not many actually stipulated last year PI request. We'll be able to give the board, under a board brief update, what the current status is right now. We do know, as I shared with you, that a great majority of the requests that we are receiving right now are into Dos Pueblos High School. I just want to be clear with you about that.
Mrs. Parker?
I just want to, well, this year you're mandating that they have to put down, if they want to fall into this category of number, the new number 6, if they have not put that they're making their transfer request because of program improvement, then they don't fall under number 6.
Correct.
Okay, so they would really need to put that down.
Previous to this next year, this enrollment period, if a parent has requested a transfer and they are indeed from a program improvement school, we've honored it under that category because we didn't want to have anyone not know about it and then later come back and be able, they get to do that. And then it helps with our planning. Now it's going to be perfectly clear because all of it will be very transparent.
Just to clarify that, the revised intra-district transfer permit that you may not have had an opportunity to see, it is posted on the website, does incorporate program improvement right in the middle. And so we no longer require parents to complete 2 different forms. They can request an intra-district transfer and state PI as a reason right in the middle.
Do you have a motion to approve, including Mrs. Parker's addendum to paragraph 5, the new section number 6, and changing 6 to 7?
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I do just have one quick question, and that is this discussion then means that we will not be telling parents for PI that we will not be designating the 2 schools of choice as the schools that students can go to from PI schools.
Now, that's not part of the motion.
Correct.
I'm just wondering has this discussion affected that part of it? No. Okay. Okay.
Any further discussion?
I just want to be clear that that means only if they don't get a space, that they will have a place to go that's not program improvement.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like they're automatically placed there.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, let's see, where are we? I think we. E4 is the approval of naming San Marcos High School gymnasium facilities.
And I believe, Norm, will you make this presentation? Well, a couple of people. Board, I need to apprise you of the background of this and be honest about my position on this. I had advised the school earlier to be judicious about asking us to rename facilities as we're becoming increasingly aware of the need for funding, and these become funding opportunities, and I believe they're tying this into making it something of a funding opportunity. In fact, I recommended against this proposal for that reason, and because we will have future funding needs, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 40 years down the road, and if we've assigned names to our facilities, and any of our facilities that need rebuilding or refurbishment don't have that opportunity. In the absence of that, I recommended that school bring only one name forward, and the board may want to consider that. I don't know Murray. I certainly know John Lee, and he is, well, I respect both gentlemen, given the reputation of Murray and of course John Lee's record. I respect both of them very much. And in fact, knowing John Lee, I like him very much too. So that recommendation has nothing to do with who these people are. Norm, do you want to make the presentation?
I will, and we'll all have a piece of this, but I'd
Okay.
like to lead off and present, please. President Herron, members of the school board, Dr. Sarvis, thank you for allowing us to present a proposal to you to recognize 2 of the most prominent and important gentlemen in over 50 years of history of San Marcos athletics. I assure you this request is thoroughly supported by our staff, community, and alumni. We have 2 well-respected community members that have joined us this evening as we make a request on behalf of Maury Halleck and John Lee. We could have people out the door, but in order to be prudent, we'll just have the 2 gentlemen here tonight. Alumni representatives Sal Rodriguez and Todd Rogers will speak to the qualifications of these 2 local heroes to be considered by the board to have the gym floor and gymnasium named in their honor. We're applying to name the San Marcos High School facilities in recognition of the accomplishments and positive influences that coaches Halleck and Lee have had on our school, students, community, and the county. Criteria number 2 of the board policy states individuals living or deceased who have made outstanding contributions to the county or community. You'll hear shortly how these 2 longtime coaches and teachers have made a lasting impact on all associated with San Marcos High School. We're asking them to receive this well-deserved recognition. By way of further information, we're holding a fundraising event later this month where we will be honoring these 2 legends. Past athletes, fellow coaches, colleagues will be coming from across the country to pay honor and give respect for what Maury Halleck and John Lee have meant to them. The gala event at the Carriage Museum is a fundraiser for the San Marcos High School Turf Field Project. We're hoping that night to raise a healthy amount going toward the $800,000 needed for the field project. It would be an added bonus to assist us in the fundraiser if we could include the naming of those facilities in their honor at that time. We do, of course, understand the naming of a facility is a board decision and subject to board process. Our athletic director, Mr. Abe Jahadami, will relate a brief experience for these two legendary coaches. Then he will introduce our two guest speakers. Thank you. Mr. Jahadami.
I'll speak about Maury from my experience very briefly, and then I'll bring up Sal Rodriguez. Maury Halleck asked me to be the head soccer coach at San Marcos 22 years ago. When I was considering the position, I asked people what it was like to work for Maury. The response I always heard was that if you genuinely care for kids and you treat all kids, regardless of what backgrounds they are, Maury will always back you up. I've adhered to that philosophy and made it my own as a coach and as an athletic director. We do things in the best interest of kids at San Marcos High School. I'm going to call up Sal Rodriguez right now. Sal's an icon in Goleta. He has done more for youth in Goleta than anyone I know. Sal played basketball at San Marcos High School, was an all-CIF basketball player, and took the Royals to the CIF finals. He went on to Santa Barbara City College and then started at Fresno State. He is in the Hall of Fame at San Marcos High School. He's also the only person who's a Hall of Famer in the Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable as a player and also as a community leader. He's a retired CEO of the United Boys and Girls Club. Sal, would you please come up?
It's an honor to come before you guys. I'm kind of nervous because to come before the education, never done that in my life unless I'm asking for some money. So, but anyway, you know, I went to San Marcos High School and grew up in Goleta. I was going to be a Santa Barbara Don. Thought I was going to be a Don, and then the new high school opened up, so we were forced to go to San Marcos. I met this gentleman, Maury Halleck, on the basketball court, and he was just great. He treated everybody equally. It wasn't about winning or losing; it was about character building. He taught everybody how to you work hard, you fair play, give it your best shot. You step in between the lines. You're gonna go really hard, you know. And it's all about taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, and just being a good person. And this is what I learned from him. And academics, he pushed me in the classroom. He says, you play all the basketball you want, but if you don't do well in school, you're not going to do anything. I screwed around a lot when I was a freshman, sophomore. And then he got to me when I was a junior and a senior, and then I went on to City College. He followed my career there. I did well. He followed me to Fresno State, was always encouraging me. Went to Vietnam. He was always taking care of me there. When I got back, one of the first guys I talked to, and he supported me when I got the job at the Boys and Girls Club. And then when I became the CEO, he took me aside. He says, anything you need, you just ask me, and I'll be there. You know, Maury, again, it's not about winning. He's just a great individual. I remember we were playing at San Luis Obispo tournament, real quick, and I'll end this thing. Playing basketball against this guy from San Luis Obispo, he threw a racial slur at me. And then, first time it ever happened to me, and then Maury heard it, what he said to you, and I told him what he said to me, so Maury demanded of the coach to get that kid out of the game for what he said. And so he backed me up, and I never, ever, ever forgot that. And it's good to honor somebody when he's still around, not later on, and Maury's still here, and I think he's a great gentleman and a great teacher, and this is what you guys are looking for teachers, to be that good. So I encourage you guys to support this nomination, and thank you for allowing me to come up here.
Thank you for all that you've done.
John Lee was a great coach and a super English teacher. His record speaks for itself. When John stepped down from coaching a couple years ago, I asked him to give me his overall record. He did not know it. John never kept track of his record. Most of us as coaches, if you ask us our overall record, we'll blurt it out just like that. John instead remembers the matches and great performances that by his players. He may not know his impressive record, but he can remember all the players' names that he coached, every single one of them. And his passion for his players and his sport, just unbelievable. Todd Rogers will talk about John Lee. Todd is a San Marcos graduate from 1991. You might not recognize him with his shirt on, but you see him out on the volleyball court. He was all CIF in volleyball and soccer. I had an opportunity to coach him. He was CIF MVP in volleyball, took San Marcos High School to the championship where they won. He was two-time All-American at UCSB in volleyball. He's in our Hall of Fame at San Marcos. He was beach volleyball 5 times. He was defensive MVP. He was the MVP of the AVP Pro Tour in 2006, world champion in 2007, and a gold medalist in the Beijing Games in 2008. I'd like to present Todd Rogers. One thing about Todd, as great of an athlete as he is, he's even better human being.
Thank you for letting me speak here. Just real quick about John Lee. This is a man that really taught me about accepting responsibility, about being a good teammate, and about becoming a good leader. The reality is I probably wouldn't have played beach volleyball if it weren't for John Lee. He's the guy that came to us as kids when we were freshmen and said, hey, you want to become good at indoors? Go down to the beach, play at East Beach, enjoy yourself. You're going to get a lot better there. Sure enough, we did, and he was right. You know, I've had a lot of awards playing professionally, obviously the Olympics being the top part of it. John Lee and the community, he runs the East Beach camps down at Santa Barbara. I have an 8 and a 10-year-old, and I can appreciate dropping them off knowing that they're going to be taken well care of, they're learning something, they're getting exercise, and in today's world, I feel that's critical for young kids. He also does something that probably a lot of people don't know. He brings in his high school kids from not only his high school, but from the other local high schools and has them coach. So he teaches these kids how to play the game, but he's also teaching them how to coach other kids as well. I was one of those people, and in fact, he ends up, I think in his resume, has 30 coaches out there in the club, the high school, and even the collegiate ranks as well. Obviously, you guys know he was a great English teacher with probably one of the world-class vocabulary. If you've ever been able to speak with him, it's amazing. And he's coached the boys and girls there for over 20 years, and you coach and you don't get a lot, and he loves this sport. The passion that he has for volleyball translates to all of his athletes that he's coached, whether it's down at East Beach with his camps, whether it's at San Marcos High School. Certainly I felt that. Coach Lee's biggest influence on me was actually probably when he kicked me out of the gym during a practice. You have to learn those lessons in life where you're not bigger than the team, and that's what he was big on. You can't be bigger than the team, and certainly at times I will admit I kind of felt that way, and he put me in my place. We talked about it, and it became a good life lesson for me. You know, the idea of naming the gym after Coach Halleck and the gym floor after Coach Lee, in my opinion, is a fantastic one. Both coaches have had tremendous success over a long period of time at San Marcos. Both coaches have been instrumental in the lives of their players, and both coaches represent the sports played in that specific gym. I can't imagine another 2 guys who are more deserving than this than Coach Halleck and Coach John Lee. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Obviously, we couldn't have said it better than the 2 people that know these guys extremely well, and so we made this application to you and hope that you can consider that naming these facilities after 2 of the finest gentlemen I know.
Any public comments?
Lane Wheeler?
Lane Wheeler, Santa Barbara Teachers Association. And I would like to add the Santa Barbara Teachers Association's endorsement of this concept. I think one of the key things you heard tonight was, in addition to being great coaches, these 2 gentlemen were great teachers. And oftentimes when naming opportunities come up, we don't honor teachers, we honor contributors, which is a very important aspect, but it's not the essential aspect. There are a number of facilities in our district that are named after great principals. They didn't become great principals without having great teachers. And the opportunity to take a chance to honor these 2 folks, I think, is one we can't pass up. Knowing John Lee having my children in his class, he is a great teacher. I can speak to that. Having my son coached by him, I also know he's a great coach. Working with him in the union, I know he's a great unionist. He's an excellent choice for this word. I had a very good friend who was in high school and played for Maury Halleck. When I asked Rodney Lewis one day what kind of a man he was, he said he's a great teacher first. He said he's also a great coach. I would encourage you to think outside the box on this naming potential, because I know it does take up two opportunities. But we still have the yet-to-be-named athletic facility or the gymnasium complex. So there's other ways to package this where you still preserve the right to have a naming opportunity so that a contributor could make a large summative donation. So here's an opportunity to kind of think locally, vote locally, and act globally. You still preserve the right to offer that other option out there, and yet you honor two excellent teachers and coaches who have made summative differences on the lives of thousands of people in our community. I know Maury, I know John. I'm very happy to endorse them. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Deacon?
Can you give us an update on the fundraising to date for the turf field project, how much you've raised and how much is yet to go?
Well, there's one thing in raises and there's one thing in pledges, and we really have a kickoff move that's coming in the end of this month that's tied into this. We have partnerships with Santa Barbara Soccer to help us raise through their contacts as well as ours. And once that gets going, we hope to branch out. So maybe you want to speak more to that?
We have a commitment over 100,000 from them, and then we're hoping at this event, we're getting high rollers that are hopefully coming in, and we're going to give pledge sheets in honor of Maury and John Lee for this project. And so we've got grant writers going to hit up foundations and other sources that we have.
There are quite a few of their former athletes who have turned out to be quite successful.
I'm thinking about the Marjorie Luke Theater and how the donor there chose to name it after a teacher, and wondering if there might be a donor out there who would take that opportunity.
Yeah, there are people coming from all over the country to honor Maury and John at this event. And so, you know, we've heard about people possibly donating to the turf field because of them.
The donations that will be coming, obviously, at this point, if it's allowable by the board, is pledging toward the naming for recognizing these two gentlemen in that fashion.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cordero?
Well, I just wanted to say that I actually was quite happy when I read this item, because I think that naming facilities after people who have actually contributed to those campuses and those students is a really great idea. I completely support the naming opportunities for people who make large monetary contributions as well, because obviously that benefits a huge number of students over a long period of time. But I also think that the people who have contributed their many, many, many years warrant recognition as well. And although I'm a Don, as Mr. Jahadabi knows.
We'll try not to when against you.
Oh, believe me, you couldn't if you wanted to. When I grew up knowing who Maury Halleck was, because of our, traditional rivalry.
You bet.
These were both two figures who were very, very prominent throughout the athletic community in Santa Barbara, regardless of which school you attended. So I think that this is just a really great idea, and I also think that recognizing tonight has been something of an auspicious evening. I think we've had Dr. Yang here as the president of the university. We have a gold medalist from the Olympics. We have the king of, Goleta athletics for many, 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 many years. And I just feel like we're recognized. We have many examples of people who have made contributions in many different ways and have deserve recognition for that. So I actually support this. Dr. Sarvis, I understand your concerns, but as someone who has long-standing ties to this community, I am thrilled with the idea of recognizing those people who also have those long-standing ties.
One of the added residuals of naming something after these two gentlemen, as we have proposed, is that it really tells the community what we stand for and what's important to us. And, you know, their lives and what they put into this community is what's important.
Okay, I'm a Don before the Royals even existed, so I have no problem whatsoever. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Oh, gotta be faster on the draw, Dr. Noel.
Uncharacteristically, I'd like to enter a dissenting view. When I think of telling the community what we stand for and the values we have, I think of a lot of teachers, and in my particular case, I don't think of athletics first. And I, at the same time, share Dr. Sarvis's concern about reserving some naming opportunities for fundraising. And finally, I don't have a context. These things come along incrementally and in sort of ad hoc fashion. And I would really like to see San Marcos High School come in with some thoughts about a broader picture of naming opportunities, criteria for picking the people who will be honored. My son went to San Marcos, and there were some one particularly who we all know, Eric Burroughs, is a legend in his own time, and what are we saving to name after the people like Eric Burroughs? Now, he's not an athletic star, but in my book, he's a star. And I'm not comfortable. I'd like to see I'd like to see a plan, putting this one into context. What else? What lies ahead? What are your visions and dreams for finding tangible ways to honor the many people who are legendary and have been legends at San Marcos High School, not just the athletics department.
Well, understand too that these gentlemen were teachers first. And that's one of the things that I think you heard both these gentlemen speaking to about, you know, what they learned more so than coaching.
Mrs. Deacon?
I do support these naming opportunities, but I have to tell you that I hesitated initially because I am a little concerned about taking things off the table when we know that we really need to bring in outside funding to our schools. And clearly these are coaches, and so it's very appropriate to name an athletic facility after them. But I agree with Dr. Noel that I think for San Marcos to go and look at a strategic plan for fundraising is a good idea, and to look at what your other opportunities are, and to really work with donors and cultivate them, the ones that you know are of capacity but are alumni of the school, and really try to raise as much as you can in this opportunity, because you will only have so many more times that you can find things to name. So I think it sets a precedent too. I mean, we've set a pretty high bar in the past, in the recent past, asking $500,000 for naming opportunities. So, you know, that's a high bar, but I think that we want to be cautious about setting precedents where in the end we take things off the table that we would really need and would like to have. So I support this, but I do think it's a good idea to really put your heads together and think about where you can go from here.
There was a motion by Mrs. Cordero and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. 4-1, Dr. Noel in dissent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Actually, I was going to suggest that if John Lee was here tonight, I would have told the board that we would want to wait until he's old enough so that we were sure he wouldn't embarrass us. Yes. But I will share that with
Question on E6, is there a special guest coming to present E6, or is that,
Oh, I'm sorry.
is Meg our, okay, So our auditors are here.
Oh, yes,
Okay,
our auditors
okay.
are here, anxiously awaiting.
Yeah, I
However,
think-
we do need to take.
And let's do E5 real quick. Does somebody nominate Annette Cordero to be the representative to Cesar Chavez?
I would like to nominate Annette Cordero to be the representative at Cesar Chavez.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That one's off the
Well,
table.
thank you, board.
We will take a 10-minute break, come back at 20 minutes to 10. Okay. For scheduling purposes, we're not going to get to F2 or F5. Okay, F2 is report on the Santa Barbara High School and San Marcos High School bridge programs. And the F5 is the parent pay transportation program. Okay, we are now on E6, the approval of the Santa Barbara School District's independent audit report for the period ending June 30th, 2009.
And our Deputy Superintendent, Eric Smith, will introduce us.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. As the board knows, last year we switched auditing firms. We went to the firm of Nigro & White, and Christy White is here to present our audit for the 2008-2009 fiscal year. Christy?
Thank you, Eric, and good evening, board members and Superintendent Sarvis. It's nice to be here tonight. And this is the first year that we are your auditors, and I can tell you that I think we did a very thorough job. We went out to school sites, we looked at your attendance and your ASB, a lot of internal control work, and I think you'll see when you look back at the findings and recommendations that we have quite a few things that we think could really help to improve the business functions in the school district. And really that was at the request, that kind of an in-depth view of your deputy superintendent here, so you can thank him for that. You have many new players in your business office, and I can see already that they've made a lot of progress in many of those recommendations. So I look forward to coming back in the spring and following up on those. Just to kind of give you the highlights, because I know that it's been a long evening and you have more items to attend to, but essentially there are audit opinions on your financial statements, as well as federal and state compliance. And so in all three of those cases, we have rendered the best audit opinion that you can receive, which is an unqualified audit opinion. So the district's to be congratulated on that. And we not only look at the books and the financial amounts, but we look at a lot of the programs that you run to for compliance. For example, we looked at 7 federal award programs, and in all 7 of those programs, we had no findings or non-compliance to report. Of course, a lot of state programs as well, and again, we had no findings. So very good job in that area. I'm not going to go through the report. But obviously, if you have any questions on any page, please feel free to ask. Again, like I said, we did have many recommendations in terms of internal control improvements, and I think the majority of those, like I said, have either been fixed or are in the process of being fixed. And so with that brief presentation, I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Noel?
Could you give us a general reaction to the district's response to your findings? Responses to your findings?
Right, yeah. Yeah, the district was, I think, very thorough in responding and very specific in their plans. And so, and we thought the responses were, appropriate for the recommendations that were made. Kind of the overarching theme that you may have picked up, particularly as it relates to the business processes here, was bringing in more people in segregations of duties, moving some duties around, reorganization, so that you have good internal controls. As you know, you're fiscally independent as a school district, meaning that You are kind of the final review and authority over the warrants that are paid, and with that comes added responsibility. And we think prior to you hiring your internal auditor, for example, that you really didn't have the key players in place in order to meet that responsibility, but now you do. And I can see already, and it's described, I think, fairly well in their responses, that they're making those changes.
The, you just used the term, but it's the, what do you call it, the segregation of functions? Or,
Correct, yeah.
That comes through very clearly here.
Mhm.
Not many members of the public read audit reports, and I fear not many members of our faculties read audit reports. And apropos of the question of, well, let's cut administrative positions, and I have taken that position on occasion myself. There is the other side that says we need to add positions, and Mr. Smith has made that argument, adding people to the in his area, and I just don't think that message, why they're being added, could be clearer. As you read this, you see, my God, that job can't do this job. There needs to be either a separate person or some kind of a firewall between these functions. At some point, Mr. Smith, Dr. Sarvis, I think it'd be very useful to have some kind of a public explanation, and one for us, of the way in which requirements for personnel flow from these kinds of requirements.
And are you speaking specifically about the internal auditor?
Well, that's just one, but there are a number
Okay.
of them here. We're talking about the purchasing.
Yes.
There was one about payroll and accounting, and they, you know, I purposely don't want to remember this stuff. Okay. You know?
I think.
But I carry away a message that all I carry away is I see FTE. I have a little counter. Full-time equivalents. Click, 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 click. Some clarification.
Well, I think, I mean, we haven't added anybody in the last couple of years, but I think just as a course of doing business, whether Christy or Meg or Julie wants to jump in, I mean, we're always focused on internal controls and segregation of duties because that's what prevents, you know, fraud, misappropriation of funds, and all those kind of bad things that school districts can get in trouble with. So, you know, we're always looking at strengthening those internal controls, and a lot of that requires segregation of duties, which requires different bodies doing different things.
I wanted also just to comment, I see this 37,005 about in the inventory category that was problematic.
What page?
Oh, that's on page 92. And it's just, my recollection is we've had findings in the past about inventory, and that's why I asked, is our response at the bottom of that page on track? And I gather, and I'm happy that you answered that it is. I was very pleased to read on pages 98 and 99 that there are no findings about federal awards and no findings about state awards. That has not always been true, and we've had problems with Title I funding and the use of targeted intervention funds at one of our schools, and so that's very good. And my last comment is to commend the whole staff under Mr. Smith and Meg for doing a terrific job and having so few findings, although and they seem very technical and they seem under control. I think we should all be, we will all sleep better by virtue of your good work.
Wait till you hear my budget presentation.
Well, that's another issue.
Mrs. Deacon?
I'd like to thank you, first of all, for presenting a document that was very readable and very accessible, because this can be thick stuff, and yet I found it very accessible. And because Mr. Smith used the fraud word, I would just say I had no idea there were that many opportunities for fraud. And so, but I'm really heartened by the efforts of the district to make sure that there are these segregation of duties and locked doors and all kinds of things that really anticipate and make sure those things don't happen. I had one quick question, because I'm assuming that you do audits for a number of school districts. Would you say that our district is comparable, and I know student demographics different, all kinds of things different, but in terms of revenues brought in and through things like donations and use fees, is the percentage that we bring in comparable to other districts, would you say?
I would say, and this just is anecdotally speaking, that you probably have more resources than most school districts. Your community is very supportive of the schools. I mean, that's evident by the donations that you accepted just tonight. And I don't think that most school districts have those kind of resources. That being said, there's never enough money, obviously. I know that you are either in or heading towards a basic aid kind of status where there potentially could be more money per pupil. There's only a handful of districts in the state that are able to receive more money than is allotted from Sacramento. So there could be more funding in your future. I think right now you have a little bit more, not a lot more to work with. Mm-hmm.
It seemed that maybe not a lot of money, but the Associated Student Body activities with cash seemed to be prevalent across the district as being a problem.
Right. Right. Yeah, that was one of our, that was our other kind of major finding, was that we like to see very standardized procedures and forms used in Associated Student Body accounting. And so we look for those controls. Again, a lot of opportunity for potential fraud to occur. So many people are involved in, handling money out at a school site. So I know that that's one of the big efforts that the district is making in terms of providing the training. In fact, I think they have training scheduled already for the bookkeepers and advisors. So again, we're going to be coming out in April, and so we'll take a look at the progress that's been made. But yes, that's a priority area as well.
Mrs. Gudero?
Well, that was the area that I had questions about too. And so I was just wondering, the items in our response, in the district response, and this may be more directed at Eric or Mr. Smith or I'm not sure whom. There's a number of responses or a number of strategies that are identified as a part of our response. I'm wondering if are any of those in place now?
I'm probably
have
gonna
we
defer
started? I
to
mean, I guess
either
my question is,
Meg or Julie,
have
because
we
they've been
started
working on
these already, or are they still in
One thing
process
that
being developed?
One thing that I want to make sure you understand is that ASB findings in an audit are extremely common throughout the entire world. So yes, to answer your question, we send we ask anyone who has to do anything with ASB accounting to go to the FCMAT conference that they have up at the County Education Office every September. But we've taken upon ourselves, and with Julie and Ana Hernandez, to do a little cheat sheet, a little binder that will help them get through the process, that when they get cash receipts, they know exactly how to do it, what forms to use. We're identifying what the advisor's job is. We want to see board minutes. We're putting in a whole, they're not going to be very happy about it, but I think in the long run, it'll give them a shortcut to doing it correctly. As far as some of the findings, yes, we've already taken care of those. The one with the credit card, that was shredded. It's in my office,
Okay.
ready to go for the 9/10
That was going to be a question too.
And as Eric Smith says, findings this year is okay, findings next year is not. So, and that's our theory.
I think the other thing.
Thank you.
the other thing too is that, Christy mentioned, I think it's noteworthy that it's an unqualified opinion, which means that basically they could find everything, everything we asked for, we could produce and document, as opposed to an unqualified opinion. And that's some cause for celebration, but once we systematically exterminate all ASB findings and we have no ASB findings, then we really should do a happy dance, because that's something you don't really see in most school districts.
And we expect it, Mr. Smith. Okay. Yeah. And Mrs. Parker.
I just want to say thank you so much. And for the ASBs, I hope that they're understanding of you. I know that this can be incredibly frustrating for them. I'm sure you've gone to every site and already had the what, because they need flexibility, and yet they need to follow the rules. And sometimes it's really hard to find the right path that works for everybody. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing on that, and I hope that they don't think that you're, really horrible. But I'm sure you. I would like to move to approve the Santa Barbara School District's independent audit report for the period ended June 30th, 2009.
Any discussion? You're seconded by Dr. Noel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you for spending your evening with us.
Thank you, Christy.
We'll try to give you more time next time so you could read the whole report to us. No, okay. Okay, E7, approval of classified general fund positions layoffs due to lack of work.
Elaine Alvarado, our classified personnel coordinator, will make this report.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. A series of events have taken place that have brought us here tonight. We have had a resignation in one of our business office departments in the purchasing office. Therefore, that allowed us to open up some discussion. When we look at positions, and what we've presented to you before is closely monitoring and perhaps cutting back through attrition. Based on this, we were able to move forward and following a recommendation that was made by School Services of California. So we've, as presented in this report, have accepted this, obviously this resignation, and have moved forward to a reorganization that Eric Smith has proposed and what was recommended. We are making and proposing changes to the business office departments through payroll, accounting, moving management positions. The person that's infected by this change in decision has rights to a buyer position, which generated the discussion and allowed us to move forward on this. So by doing so, could move forward with a recommendation to eliminate the payroll benefit supervisor position, again knowing that that would give her rights to a buyer position, which is the vacant position. With that in mind, it would present an opportunity for a management person to oversee payroll, which again was one of the recommendations. One of the clarifications I do want to make that came from School Services, it does note that there was supervision under Human Resources. At the time that they came out, it was just a temporary interim supervision that the payroll, that personnel had on the payroll staff. But obviously since then that's been taken on by the additional staff that's been brought on by Eric Smith. The impact and cost impact I've identified in the report also, there is a cost shift. So we're eliminating position, but we're maintaining the buyer position, so it kind of washes out in that respect. Another point to make out is that in the time that we've done the report, we have met with CSEA, we've met with the classified bargaining unit, we've reviewed this proposal and the changes in the reorganization, and they are have been supported, and we've agreed to move forward. The person identified, we've had discussions and meetings with her, and she'll be noticed appropriately if this is approved. Do you have any questions?
Mine was just about the fiscal impact, because it was a little unclear from this cover memo. Is there a fiscal impact or?
Will actually be cost neutral, because what will happen, you're just looking at the reduction in force portion. So there's actually two parts. There was a resignation in purchasing. The person who's a classified employee in payroll has rights to that position. We've been concerned about issues in payroll. And so one of the ways we could basically get management over there on a full-time basis was take our current accounting coordinator who split over payroll in both accounts payable and accounts receivable, focus her time solely on payroll, shift basically accounts receivable and accounts payable under Meg with some assistance from Patty Pimentel, who's our confidential person in that department. And then through the savings that were actually accrued by the elimination of this position, we'd probably hire a payroll tech at a lower level to shift some of the weight there, but it would actually be cost neutral in totality.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, well, that actually was my question too. So I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve the classified general fund position layoff due to lack of work. I do appreciate the spirit behind this restructuring because I know you're aimed towards more efficiency, and in the end, that's what we want. So I appreciate that.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. E8, approval of board action on student expulsion case numbers 09-10/10-17.
I'll make a motion. I would like to move in case 09/10-17 that we accept the recommendation of the administrative hearing panel to one suspended school year expulsion with the option of staying at the existing school.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Now we have a break. On the conference agenda, 9:05 item at 10:05, that's good. Discussion of the FCMAT draft action plan.
Tom Guajardo, our Executive Director of Special Education, will introduce this.
Members of the board, Superintendent Sarvis, it gives us great pleasure to present this draft to you this evening. This has been a long road, starting with the FCMAT recommendations last spring, 153 of them, and the board then authorized a stakeholder group to go through and prioritize and take a look at any duplications there. And from there, we ended up with 4 groups. One in charge of, or working with organization, one with communication, one with program and services, and one with professional development. And both the large FCMAT group and the subgroups have agreed to continue to meet. The objective of the subgroups is to be able to take this draft tonight after we get input from the board to be able to actually convert that into an action plan. And Carol will take it from there.
First, I would like to thank the stakeholders group and staff and community members who were involved in this commitment and hard work and producing 2 documents actually that you have, which is the draft action plan and then the FCMAT recommendations that were categorized by several items. And Tom, do you have those? Because I left those in the packet. Great, thanks. This is a plan in process, and the draft action plan actually has, as Tom mentioned, 4 focus areas with 24 required actions. But each of those actions have lots of subcomponents underneath them. For example, one action that talks about developing procedures and policies and guidelines involve approximately 20 FCMAT recommendations. And there are 5 subgroups, actually. The first subgroup is the vision statement, as well as the others that Tom mentioned. And when you first look at the first glance at the action plan, it actually looks shallow, but it's not. It's a plan in progress, and the subgroups are continuing to meet. And for example, the vision statement group is looking at the vision statement, and it was agreed that we would stay with, of course, we're going to stay with the district mission statement, but we have a hybrid vision statement. And that's important because that includes philosophy and vision. The communication and information group, there's immediate actions involved as well as systematic communication actions. And we've been investigating some computer network programs that are really exciting that would able us to track complaints, compliance, and enhance communication modes. And I use an example. I was really upset with my Verizon, and I called them, and they had a whole listing of information about me, and they said, "Oh, you called last month." And I spoke with somebody overseas, and he said, "You were very recalcitrant when you talked last time. Are you going to be nice this time?" And I said, "I'm going to be fine. I don't have a problem. I just want some assistance this time." And he said, "That's what you asked for last time." And you became very irate. And so he had everything about me. And I thought, wow, we don't have a system like that. And we could sure use a system like that. The other area is the professional development and training. And those are based on what the identified needs are. And we are in the process of identifying all of the available programs and support activities, as well as what we would like, what we need to present, what we can calendar, job likes. We have the program specialists now, and they're out in the school sites doing a marvelous job. But we haven't had a staff development plan prior to this, and this is what we're looking forward to. Regarding the program and services, we've got a lot of great programs going on, but we haven't identified those. So we're in the process of listing all of our programs, services, and instructional strategies. And then the next step is to identify which of those programs and strategies we can borrow and use from our SELPA members as well as from the SELPA and county offices. And then which of those do we have to develop, and what resources do we have, what resources do we need. So it's surveying, finding out what we have, and then implementing. And then organizational, and the key to organizational structure is to identify the centralized as well as the decentralized. We need to look at our organizational chart. There have been many recommendations that we have more detail or possibly include networks of entities, because we network with a lot of different organizational groups. Something like a map organizer. And then tasks related to each action. What we need to do, especially with regard to developing policies and procedures and handbooks. So there's a lot of work. The consensus of the group was they would like to continue to meet. The subgroups have created their own work schedules, and they're coming up with great information. So we've got a lot of detail, and it's a plan in progress. Basically what we did was we developed a format for the action plan, and it's difficult to look at the action plan unless you've got the recommendations alongside, because the action plan references, for example, the first one, rebuild special education section of the district website, and we're already in the process working with Barbara on that. And then the recommendations are 4 or 5 recommendations that align to this. It does not include, the action plan does not include all the FCMAT recommendations. We have reached out to those priorities that the work group indicated that were priorities, and Tom mentioned there were 4 or 5 areas. So it's a work in progress, and we are excited about it, and we would like to talk about it. Have any questions, or we've allotted at least an hour.
Questions?
I guess for me, I'm wondering if there's public comment.
Yeah, let's go with public comment. How many do we have? Good.
Carolyn Renard, followed by Lynn Rodriguez, followed by Kate Smith.
Despite it seems like the efforts of many members of the community who have put in a lot of good faith time into this committee, it sounds like the feedback I've received is that it's been a highly scripted farce. And of course, when this board is choosing to focus only on the FCMAT recommendations, and the FCMAT did not address the more serious problems regarding the special education program, which is the purposeful denial of rights by school administrators. And in order simply to save money, I mean, these acts, you got a lot of evidence and testimony about the acts that people did that had nothing to do with just the management issues, which is all FCMAT has focused on, yet you're doing nothing about that, and we still have the same leadership, Mr. Sarvis, that was in charge when we caused this problem. No one has been held responsible. You're treating this as simply an organizational issue when you all know it's way more than just an organizational issue. So maybe you are getting things more organized, but that's not going to change the basic nature of the people who are running this district. So how can the problem really go away? Also, by focusing solely on the FCMAT report, even organizational issues are left out, such as the need for a formal complaint procedure, a formal written complaint procedure that's very detailed for when parents continue to run into problems. That was a problem before, it's still going to be a problem, and we don't have a complaint procedure that's any good now. It's ridiculous, as a matter of fact, a personnel complaint procedure. Specifically getting into some of these recommendations, on page 13, number 119, they recommended increasing the staffing level for nurses from 3.0, I assume that's 3 full-time nurses to 7 full-time nurses, to align more closely with the statewide ratio. Well, that's over double the number of nurses. Why is that
30 seconds.
Why has only 1.0 FTE positions been added since that recommendation, which was close to a year ago, I think? That is not a low priority. These nurses are absolutely needed. Why aren't there more of the nurses by now? Also, the FCMAT made a recommendation, or they were supposed to make a recommendation about the district forming its own SELPA. Is that just going to get swept under the rug now?
Thank you, Ms. Bernard. Lynn Rodriguez, followed by Kate Smith.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff. First of all, I just want to thank the district, the board, for committing the resources to make all the progress we've been able to make so far. I know it's a lot of resources you've committed in terms of staffing and the FCMAT recommendations, but I'm here to tell you I see the results on a daily basis at my daughter's school, at San Marcos High School, and I'm very, very pleased to see what I feel is at this point a much more increasing rapidity in which these things are being implemented. So I can tell you I'm seeing, just from my own experience, a lot of improvement. My daughter's been receiving special ed services in this district for 12 years, and certainly over the years there's been a lot of issues, but primarily the primary issue was lack of staffing, just inadequate numbers of people to get the work done. And now that we've got 6 people in place, I can see from just today I had a meeting with my daughter's team, and one of the program specialists was able to attend that meeting, and we had a very productive discussion. It wasn't an IEP meeting, it was just a team discussion that never really would have been possible before because there just weren't enough staff members to commit to that. So we were able to talk about her plan and the things coming up for her, and I can't tell you how happy I am right now to say see the improvements that I'm seeing. I participated in the working group process. I think there were a lot of people, a lot of discussion about a lot of things. The FCMAT recommendations were very diverse and numerous, but I think through the process we really did make a lot of progress. There's a lot more to be done. I'd love to see the term FCMAT removed now. We're now just going to, I think, should focus on overall general continued improvements in our district special ed services. We have a lot more to do. This is still really just the beginning. I really want to say special thanks to Dr. Carol Miller for everything that she has done. I'm sorry I missed her accolades earlier, but I know how much work she's put in, as well as the rest of the new staff that have been brought on board. I am just incredibly optimistic. I'm kind of sad that there's only 4 more years for my daughter to be in this district, well, in the transition program after that. But I just want to really, really thank you for all the hard work that you've all put in, that all the parents in the SEEK group and the FCMAT working group and everybody, because it's just been a long road. But we're taking steps forward in the right direction, and I think we need to just keep looking ahead and keep working together and continuing to commit the resources in terms of staff time and effort to see these things through to the end. It's not over. If you continue this working group or something else and create the parent advisory committee, there's lots more work. There will always be more work to be done. But as a parent, I just want to thank you very much, and I'm seeing the positive results. So, thank you.
Thank you very
Ms.
much.
Rodriguez. And Kate Smith?
President Herron, members of the Santa Barbara School Board, I am chagrined to hear the comments by the previous speaker, especially since she attributed the problems to a lack of staff. And what I have found is that this school district has self-aggrandized to an impossible, defunct bureaucracy, that you refuse to listen to your constituents, and you have a sense of invulnerable status. The FCMAT report was an indictment of the Santa Barbara School District's Special Education Department. There had just been the umpteenth crisis in confidence with Anise McNeil, and the FCMAT team was called in to stop an uprising. The FCMAT team was specifically not an investigation of compliance issues, and the recommendations were 150 random suggestions. Many were redundant, and the stakeholders meeting group spent hours trying to just prioritize and reduce the recommendations. This was insanity. The stakeholders task force was so convoluted as to be non-compos mentis. I called a management consultant from the Executive Office of the President of the United States, who I had met on my Mrs. Smith Goes to Washington trip, and he didn't believe that the first stakeholders meeting was scheduled on Yom Kippur. So he attended with me the first meeting after we went to Temple. After 1/2 hour, he was so disgusted with the meeting facilitation and the Meshuggah process that he asked to leave. This is not the first time taxpayer money has been paid for an evaluation of the Special Education Department. Robin Oakes was paid $32,000 to evaluate Diana Rigby. Nobody saw that report. Not even the Board of Education. I have asked for it every year.
30 seconds.
Diana Rigby was the first administrator to be found guilty of violation of ADA and IDA, after which we paid $1 million in damages and fees, more than that. And she was promoted to assistant superintendent and then was administrator of the year of the state, because Bill Cerrone is in charge of that committee. Bill Cerrone and
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Back to the board. Questions? Comments? Since I never get to start,
Oh.
I'll just ask a couple questions. On, I guess they're not, on FCMAC recommendations, school board. And oh, okay, page 12, lower left-hand corner. FICMAT report, item number 50. Schedule regular reports to the board by the superintendent or by special education personnel on the progress of the reorganization and action plan for special education, timeline completed. What do you mean by completed?
I think that's the agendized update on special education that we've had at every board meeting.
But the completed mean you're going to stop, or?
That will continue.
Okay, okay, that's.
Tonight, basically, this is the update.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we didn't stop this process of you giving us a report, okay. In answer to a question about nurses, just below nurses, item number 121 on page 13, reduce psychologists FTEs by 3 to 5 for a savings of $255,000 to $425,000, not a priority. When the presentation was made, the item 119 and 121 was sort of put together, is that you can increase nurses by reducing psychologists. And so it was presented as a sort of, like, I remember it anyway, as a package. And it's pretty hard to have the increase in staffing for nurses without the reduction of the psychologists. Why was that not a priority?
Can I interject for a minute? We have more than 3 nurses.
No, it says increase the staffing from 3 to 7 to align more closely.
But we have like 6 right now.
Okay.
We had more than 3.
We had more than
even-
3? Okay,
Exactly.
didn't know that. Okay, I'm just going by what it says in this. Okay. But why was reducing psychologists not a priority?
When we did the tallies from the large FICMAT group and asked them to prioritize, and that's on the that page 1 on your cover sheet. That was the training was head above everything else in terms of the priority, and then so on and so forth down this list. I think in terms of psychologists, I don't think there's enough information on there on what they actually do. For example, we're having behavior issues that they're involved in. 3 of them are neuropsychologists. That is a service that we require from time to time, and in the absence of that, we would have to contract out at a higher rate. And so I think there's more information that's needed before that moves any higher up on the priority.
Item 122 says exactly that, when necessary, versus additional psychologist services. You know, to me, it's a big number.
Mhm.
And if in fact this report was correct on every other item, then I would like to know at some point, definitive answer on that. Yes.
Could I just comment on that one item specifically? Because I remember when it was designated as not a priority, realizing that that ultimately would be a decision that the board will make. And I think that, as Mr. Guajardo mentioned, the groups made priority recommendations, and this was not one that rose to the top, not surprisingly, but I don't think that that means that, that the board won't come to terms with this at some point.
Dr. Noel? Mrs. Cordero.
Well, I just had a couple of questions about the some of the outreach to the Spanish-speaking community. On page 3, it identifies the action required as achieve meaningful outreach and communication to Spanish-speaking families. And then it says the resources needed, translations. And I'm wondering, do you mean translations of materials that we have? Or do you mean translators to provide translations in meetings? And then also quality interpretation. I guess I just wanted to comment on that one. And that is that I know that it's at times, because we've been limited in the number of interpreters that we have, we've occasionally had to sort of enlist the assistance of people who are not typically interpreters or not professionally interpreters. And given the very sensitive nature of this work and the confidentiality of the information involved, I just want to really emphasize that I think that is a high priority, to make sure that we have very professionally trained interpreters to participate in this. And then also, it identified February as the target date, and I was wondering first of all, is that still a date that you think you can achieve, and what is it that that we specifically think we'll achieve by February?
Actually, on both ends, we've been working very closely with personnel in terms of the requirements that are needed in order for somebody to be able to do interpretation at IEPs. And so we've got that criteria down, which includes an additional stipend for them once they pass that. They can take the written and the oral test. And we have, through ARA resources, have allocated additional monies because sometimes we're hearing that, as you mentioned, there could be an instructional assistant that comes in to do some interpretation in IEP, but when the times, when their day is over, they were leaving. And so we have notified the site principals that there is additional resources to be able to compensate them for that. As far as the translation piece, again, working with personnel, because there is a translation piece if they want to go ahead and obtain those kind of positions and to be able to actually do the translations where they take a district test, and there is compensation for that. We were a little bit backlogged in the beginning. We've been able to bring on another translator to be able to do that, and a lot of work was done over the winter holiday. So actually, this is very much in progress toward that February deadline.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the things that I didn't see, and granted it wasn't a recommendation from FCMAT, but I had hoped that I might see it in some of our responses or how we would, our suggestions, was a move to have some of the parent meetings held bilingually, and I know I sound like a broken record on this because I repeat this over and over again, but I really would hope that we would move away from our dependence on interpreters and try to incorporate bilingual meetings, so that if you recall the situation we had when we held our meeting at Santa Barbara High School, where we were scrambling to try and get enough headsets for everybody, and I believe we still ended up missing some people. And I think it's a much more inclusive environment when the meetings are held bilingually rather than forcing individuals to, have to use the technology. But in addition to that, I wanted to look at page, I guess it's page 2 under fiscal crisis management assistance team recommendations. Because I just wanted to add, do you see where I am?
What number on number 2?
Well, it says number 2, but it's like the second set of pages. So it comes.
Right after the community.
Yeah.
The advisory group?
Yeah, right.
Was that items 35, 36, 37?
Right. So in 37, I was hoping that we could add where it says ensure that the advisory board has a balanced representation of disabilities, age, blah, 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 and ethnicities, and language facility, or I don't know what languages.
Okay.
And also then in number 102, to add as part of the groups that would be included, Spanish speakers.
Okay. In answer to the first point that you were making about the being able to walk into a fully bilingual meeting, and we've also had some conversations with Dr. Noel, and we did a presentation to Cabinet shortly before the holiday, and we went out and talked to, this is being done all around us.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a meeting with a person who does this for Superior Court, Tri-County Association, and other organizations, and really just picked his brain. A wealth of information. And so we did that presentation, and Dr. Sarvis is very supportive of being able to, there's 2 pieces to that. One is the hardware itself, the headsets, which actually were not as expensive as we thought they would be. Of course, the other piece is the actual person to be able to do the interpreting, to be able to do it simultaneously, much the same way you do, you see it in a courtroom, for example. And so we did that presentation, and we're looking at possibly applying that district-wide.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I think that's really important and very valuable. But I'm particularly thinking of some of the parent meetings, et cetera, where getting away from the translation, the meeting itself is conducted bilingually, so that everybody is fully integrated into the process.
Mhm.
So maybe we can have a little bit more discussion about that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Parker?
Thank you. Going back to the piece on the psychologists, I don't think that the stakeholders, when they were meeting about this, and Mrs. Deacon, maybe you can chime in on this, I didn't get the impression that they were considering budget issues at all. Obviously, the board will be considering budget issues, so while this is not a priority here, unfortunately, it may end up being a priority when it comes to when we're talking about the budget. So that's sort of a difference between the FCMAT plan and the larger realities at the district. I saw so many things on here that are 2009-10, and it just seemed like there's a tremendous amount of work that you will, I hope, get done by July, but it's a lot to do. So I appreciate the incredible effort that our special ed staff are putting into this. One question I had is, in terms of the stakeholders group, because we've had public comment on this, what is next in terms of continuing to get input from the community on how things are moving forward in specific areas?
Well, as was mentioned previously, the 4 subgroups that we mentioned will continue to meet. The objective there is to be able to take this document after we receive feedback from you and actually make it into the action plan. And that's something, as a matter of fact, Dr. Noel and I were talking about at the break in terms of the priorities, because the first go-around on this, my gosh, there were even more top priorities than what we filtered down. Eventually, we got into these 4 areas. But in the action plan, that's where we really start sifting through and really taking a look at the priorities to see, in reality, what can be done in 2009-10, what can wait till 10-11. As far as the large FCMAT group, they will meet, I believe it's February 17th is the next meeting, and continue to meet. And we want to have the 4 groups come back and report on their activities so that we can have additional input from that FCMAT group, the larger FCMAT group. You're welcome.
A couple more questions. I heard Dr. Miller say that a lot of the FCMAT, or some of the FCMAT recommendations aren't included in this. Is there a list of those that aren't included available so that we can keep a record of those, rather than have to go back through and keep trying to figure out which ones aren't included? So if we could have a list of those. I've asked a couple times for a list of goals accomplished and list of recommendations, you know, and I know one exists for back in November, but has it been updated, and can we get a copy of it?
Absolutely.
What has been completed?
Okay.
Parent resource representative, whatever happened to that concept?
We interviewed a couple weeks before the holiday, and had quite a few candidates who were had a bachelor's degree, master's degree. We invited in, I believe it was 4 people, and 3 of them were bilingual. Had some discussion at the end. We did prioritize the candidates, and there was some discussion at one point over whether we should continue with this position. We went back, and I had some conversations with Dr. Sarvis, and knowing that this is a priority for the school board. And we did have a top candidate. We are now conducting background searches, background reference checks.
Who did all of this documentation? Who put it all together?
This
Yeah,
plan?
all the typing and all the input.
Dr. Miller?
And who's going to do it when she leaves?
Myself.
Okay. At the last meeting, we had some real good comments from parents about a lot of things that we're doing right and a lot of things that still need help. Has that been looked at in comparison to all these recommendations to see if we're covering all those things in those 5, 6, 7 documents? And has your staff seen those letters and discussed what's in them and what needs to be done to maybe put out some fires?
They have been reviewed, and I can certainly have more discussion over that and cross-reference with what's in this report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I've read them all several times, and I started to keep track of, the different items, and you can't. I mean, there's just so many of them, all very valid. So I think those are all worthy documents to review.
Okay.
Mrs. Deacon?
I actually followed up on some of the specifics of those letters, and they have been addressed, so I just wanted to say that.
Good.
And just as someone who's been participating regularly in this, I would just like to commend the staff, the parents, everyone who's been involved in this, because people are working really hard and taking it really seriously. And I heard from one parent, they said it's night and day in terms of getting response right away to their questions and their needs. So when we look at these target dates here, you asked about what a list of things that have been accomplished. I mean, the ones that say January have been accomplished. And I know that at our last program group meeting, one of the staff said, we need to take a breath because we have so many things to do at the school sites and work with the parents that as much as we're continuing to work on all these various items, there also needs to be a lot of time just devoted to the students and the teaching and everything that's going on there. So I just want to make sure that we, as we push our staff to move forward on all these things, we also realize that our first priority is the students and the teachers and making sure that everything is in place and working for them. So I don't want to overload them too much.
My concern is that I think a lot has been done, but I can't put my fingers on a list of what's been done. I mean, that's a great PR thing to know that things are happening. And so just an updated list to me would be great to show success.
I think that's what these target dates
Yeah, but it's real hard to have to thumb through all of this to find the nuggets. And I know a list exists, and I think it could be just updated, and we could know, boom, 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 these things have been accomplished.
We'll have that to you.
Yeah. Dr. Noel?
Yes, I want to commend Carol and Tom for their fine work on this project. And I want especially to commend those who are present and those who aren't among the stakeholders. When you think about it, I mean, you made this comment some time ago, one of the latent consequences of this activity is the sense of it lives in the process. It's the sense of participation, and this is unprecedented, and in my opinion, of incredible value. So I'm quite pleased that there is the prospect that the stakeholders will continue to participate, and I think that should be ongoing. That process is never finished. We give it a new name when the plan is done, but the involvement is crucial. I like what you say, Mr. Herron. We need a list of all the things that are not on all the FCMAT recommendations that are not included here in the action plan, and we need a way of keeping update and public the things that are accomplished, and very, very recent, because many of us don't know, and we ought to know, and if we don't know, the public knows it. Maybe they know more than we do, but that shouldn't be the case. This attentive public knows more than we do. Okay, I've learned a lot in this process. I've worked with the stakeholder groups along with Mrs. Deacon, and one of the things I think we went through some stages. The initial stages, we got a lot of public input. We heard a lot of gripes. We heard some poignant expressions of frustration and anguish, and we moved beyond. Then we moved Oh, and incidentally, one of the best meetings of all was thanks to you two, that it was conducted in Spanish. And those of us who speak only English had the headsets. And it really, I think we all agreed who were there, it was qualitatively different. And that's what led to my sense of, we need to set up simultaneous interpretation like the UN at a lot of our kinds of levels of meetings, so that everybody has access and nobody is singled out as, oh, they're the ones who don't understand the language. No way. And the qualitative difference had to do with the participation and the sense of what it drew out of those parents. A level of articulateness that I was pleased and surprised by, and I shouldn't have been. And I was embarrassed by that. But hearing these people express things, and we didn't even have good interpreters, okay. But hearing it when the whole idiom was their language was terribly important, and I really appreciate your suggestion and support everything in that direction. And we went through this process of hearing a lot of gripes, and then we moved into trying to develop an action plan. And I got frustrated in that stage of the process because I still heard a lot of gripes. And a couple of times I just left. I didn't want to hear gripes anymore. I wanted to hear positive things, constructive problem solving. And then I came to realize that a stakeholders group has its own unique characteristics, namely that it's a series of perspectives, and that a stakeholders group does not include anybody to speak for the big picture. And I don't know who that is, but in the sense of outside of staff, but I got very frustrated for the lack of a big picture. And that's been the latest cause that I've been championing ad nauseum for those who've heard me. And that has led me to look at broader notions of the special ed community, and to try to find ways of bringing order out of this complexity. Now, if you think this document is complex, this document has 24 actions. I prefer to think of them as arrows rather than actions, meaning not the kind of in your back, but the kind of pointers. Okay. Well, computer talk. These are arrows. These are directions. The action plan, as Mr. Guajardo has indicated, has yet to be done for each one of those. All right, then you look at those. 24 of them. I would guess on an average, each of those actions, and incidentally, you have to look at all the FCMAT recommendations there, because each one of those contains a breakdown of the actions. You break down those boxes into the tasks and subtasks and sub-subtasks. You're probably looking at between 300 and 500 tasks to be done. Okay? All by what time? Not going to happen. And I know the complexity of this. I've been reading some things on project management and trying to learn a little about it. And I look and they say, well, this system was developed when they were developing the Minuteman II. This one was developed on the moon launch. And I think, we're small potatoes. We don't have that kind of complexity. I don't think we have that kind of complexity yet. But I think we're moving up that scale. And when you look at all of the breakdowns, the subtasks that have to be done to flesh this out, you're looking at a level of complexity that I think we're going to have a hard time with, of tasks, because you identify the tasks, then you have to say, who's going to do them? How much effort that's going to take? What task has to be done before the second task can be done? The kind of dependencies between tasks, how much is it going to cost? What kind of milestones will we have in there? You don't just crank this thing up and let it run. You want some kind of feedback and accountability, some benchmarks, and you start to lay this whole thing out in a logical and clear way. I think by the time you multiply that times 24, you're into very, very substantial complexity. And that's where we are now, just starting to look at how to proceed into that next step. And I think then all of the priorities that we who sat on stakeholders group said, okay, that's for January, that's for February. I think all of those are going to have to be reconsidered when you get down to the reality that you only have so many people to do so many things. It's just not going to be done in a hurry. So we have to satisfy the requirements, the existential requirements and the constituency requirements to get some things done fast, some things we know need to be done. And in that sense, I particularly underline Mr. Herron's concerns, or not concerns, but interest in seeing a list, an ongoing updated list of where we are. I don't know what this is. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry,
Mrs. Deacon?
I know we're running late, and so I'm going to keep this really brief. I would like to see where we are dollars-wise. I think that's the one thing we haven't really seen yet is the breakout of how the ERA money has been spent, the special ed money, and where it's budgeted to be spent. Regarding the bilingual meeting with the parents, the one thing I really came away with was these are parents like any other parent, and the concerns they had for their students were just like all the other parents' concerns. I mean, there were language issues to be sure, but the overriding message there was, these kids are, they're all special needs kids, and they all have special problems and need to be dealt with. And I would also like to vote to retire the FCMAT label. I think it's time to just call it the special ed plan. So that's.
Just a comment, Mrs. Smith, I apologize that we didn't get to you in a timely manner, and yes, you can be on the next agenda. Thank you. Any other comments for Tom or Dr. Miller? I think this is your last meeting, Dr. Miller? Well, again, you've heard it all tonight, but thank you very much. I mean, this is proof that you've had a huge influence on this body. And please come back and visit us when we are the #1 special ed department. When we're the #1 special ed department in California or the nation, come back.
We will miss you and thank you for all your great work.
That's not ritualistic applause because we all know what you do.
Okay. F4, report on the government's proposal 2010-11 fiscal year budget.
Oh, you're done with that item.
I think,
I didn't realize that. Is it the board's direction to bring this back for your approval as a district action plan at this point? I mean, there
I think
are
it was
a lot of steps to be done.
I think we were told it wasn't a finished product. It was a.
Yes.
It's a draft.
Yes.
I mean, it's a
And
work
this
in
certainly
progress.
isn't an action plan.
Yeah.
Right.
These are pointers for the action plan.
Okay.
I mean, do you need some type of motion that we're in the right direction, or keep going, keep moving?
Keep going.
What do you
I think I
need?
heard keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just concerned about those that are February dates that we're to deliver in February, and are we still going to work through the process, or are we going to work on delivering some of those things? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Fresh from Sacramento, our own Eric Smith. F4.
Thank you. As you know, the governor's budget really represents the jumping off point for the development of our budget for the 10-11 fiscal year. I think I have a couple of qualifying statements here. The first thing is I want to say is don't believe the rhetoric you're hearing, because we are going to be harmed in this budget. When you hear that we're going to be protected, the old saying, the devil's in the details, and then we don't have all the details, but the ones we have already do not bode well for us. The second issue I'm going to talk to you about is the way I have to explain this is as if we were a revenue limit district, and probably giving the interactions of what's happening with the revenue limit and property taxes and the deficits and what you're going to hear about, it's likely will be in basic aid in both districts as a result of what the state's going to do to us. So let's start with the revenue limit. The revenue limit deficit is going to remain at 18.335%. That's the good news. The bad news is because of a drop in the Prop 98 guarantee in the current year, and the fact that the Department of Finance maintains that there's no maintenance factor, Prop 98 will remain flat at about $50 billion going into next year. So what that means for us is there's going to be a negative adjustment, and the negative adjustment downward is a result of the interactions of both Prop 98 and the fact that the state missed their budgetary targets last year by about $6 billion. If you look at the cuts, they're going to be spread across all levels of government. We're only taking about 1/4 of those cuts, but still they're going to be difficult for us to absorb. On a revenue limit basis, and I'll talk about how this might affect us as basic aid districts, but I think it's important that I paint the picture as a revenue limit district so it's easier to understand, is that unlike last year, this year we're going to see a funded COLA, but the bad news is the funded COLA is a negative COLA of negative 0.38%. So under the normal operational law, what that means for an elementary district, roughly we lose about $23 per ADA. In a high school district, we'd lose about $28 per ADA. Then because of the shortfall, the governor proposes basically about $1.5 billion worth of cuts will basically be imposed on school districts and county office of education. And that translates on a revenue limit basis in the elementary district about $191 per ADA, and in the secondary district about $231 per ADA. So the totals of those two are $214 per ADA in the elementary, $259 per ADA in the secondary. Kind of sounds a lot like the $252 per ADA one-time hit. And actually, if you look at a typical unified district, it pretty much comes out to that number, more or less. So, a couple of other things before I talk about how this may affect us as basic aid districts is that no changes to categorical flexibility. That probably will remain the same. There are some proposals with regard to reducing child development and child care funds. A lot of these things will be based on an initiative process, which, as you know, the governor has not been very successful with in the past. And then there's a number of issues with how we're supposed to make these cuts. It's interesting that the governor proposes a number of things that I'm sure are unpalatable to teachers associations statewide, and those things are such things as changing the law in terms of, you know, no more March 15th deadline, 60 days notice from whenever the budget is adopted or amended, basically changing the law with regard to bringing back former teachers as substitutes, all these things that basically the governor seems as somehow impediments to efficiency or flexibility. The flip side of that, as throwing a proverbial bone to our friends over there, is that he wants us to cut $1.5 billion out of administration statewide. Well, that's, most school districts are probably between 4% and 5% right now because of the cuts they've taken, and the way they propose to do this is do it through a SACS account code function, actually through the function process. So I don't think either of those proposals are going to get traction. I think basically they're problematic, and actually even our inquiries into the Department of Finance, they have no idea how they could carry this out. So I think the reductions are real, but I think basically what will happen is that we will end up having the latitude, I should say latitude, you will have the privilege of finding ways to reduce your budget by that amount. So, okay, so let's talk about how this may affect us as a basic aid district. As you know, last year was the first year that basic aid districts took what was called a fair share hit. And the fair share hit was supposed to be in lieu of what revenue limit districts would take. So basically it's a 5.81% before the deficit, correct, on the revenue limit. So 5.81% to be applied against tier 3 categoricals, and once tier 3 categoricals were exhausted, you'd move up to tier 2. Okay. what we think probably will happen is that basically if this $252 per ADA, let's call it for argument's sake, sticks, that 5.81% will probably increase to some greater percent. But we don't know that because at this point there's no details about how any of this will affect basic aid districts, and it's just all guesswork. So I think what our recommendation will be to stay the course with the number that we talked about earlier and move through the process with the February timeline, knowing that as the details unfold, we might have to come back in May or June and do something additionally. And as I pointed out before, that's the risk inherent of going with a compressed time frame, is because the milestones are always the May revise and in some cases the final adopted budget. And that's between now and then is when the legislature and the governor will basically flesh out what actually occurs in detail. So I think a prudent course of action would be to move forward with our time frame with the number we identified, knowing we might have to come back. We might not have to come back, but I would bet we're going to have to come back, but we don't know to what extent. So that's my summary briefing of what I heard today. I wish I knew more about it, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Lane, you're still here. You drove everybody else out.
Mrs. Parker?
So the number that, I just want to be clear for people that maybe didn't see our previous meeting, that the number that was designated before was 5 million to cut.
5 million, correct.
I don't know about the rest of the board. I don't know if the governor really believed what he was saying in terms of protecting, that he was going to protect education, or if he was acting. But I felt, I felt like the public was completely being duped. I mean, I almost believed it for 24 hours.
Right.
And then as the details were coming out, it was incredibly disappointing. And I know every district up and down the state is going through this, and it's a terrible blow. And I hope that the general public and the members of the community that don't necessarily have kids in school right now understand that what he said was not true. And we're going to have another horrible budget year. So I'm just very sad about that.
Disingenuous is the term that comes to mind.
I would go stronger than that, Mr. Smith.
Other comments? Well?
I think, when he made his comments about if he wasn't going to take on the budget problem head on, he'd still be yodeling in Austria. Well, maybe he should still be yodeling.
Okay.
So we'll keep you posted.
Okay, let's go back to the three items, Dr. Noel. D5.
I looked at this item of taking the kids from McKinley on a boat ride, and I just immediately wanted some reassurance about that.
That's not D5. D4 was, we've already approved D4.
But it's the Coast Guard, so I think we're okay.
I put the post-it in the wrong place.
How about D8?
But
Oh.
I assume
Oh.
that we can all be assured that all measures of safety have been taken.
From a liability perspective, anytime we see any kind of watercraft issue, we run that by our insurance carrier. So, we just don't look at the memorandum of coverage. We actually call them or email them and ask them.
I do have a motion to approve D5, because we did not approve it before.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. D8, Dr. Noel.
My questions about D8 were clarified as I got a broader context in the
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried unanimously. And D15.
Are these back books down at the bottom, are these basically the same ones we talked about when we were doing the
I would hope not, because I would hope not, because that would be funded by Measure H and I, and this is,
Yeah, this is Title I, so this is totally separate from Measure H. Okay, that's all I'm doing.
And that's
Second.
that's ARA money, not just Title I, but it's Title I ARA.
Can I just ask a quick question, just for clarification on this? When it's referring to 17, is that a site number?
it's elementary.
Elementary is
Yeah,
a district.
The elementary
Okay,
district's
thank you.
17, the high schools, or secondary is 31. I gotta get used to
No, I
saying
think,
secondary.
I think it's 17 units and 34 units. Harding gets 34,
No, every single description site fund says 17 on this page.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Did I hear a motion on that one? And
You
a
did,
second?
and you heard a second
Move.
too.
Oh, did we? Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay. Number H, coming events. I think we've covered them. Does anybody know of any others? I, board comments, correspondence. I know that I know that Mrs. Deacon has a report on her conference, and I don't know that can you give us a peek this week and maybe a peek at the next meeting?
Okay, well, I'll be really brief because we're getting farther and farther away from when this happened. But both Mrs. Parker and I went to the CSBA conference in San Diego in December, and I personally found it really beneficial, especially because having been a board member for a year now, I got a lot more out of it because I knew more. We probably went to more than 15 sessions, saw workshops on a number of different things, including green initiatives, sustainability issues, innovative instruction, some interesting things about charter schools that I've shared with Dr. Sarvis, and I'm sure Mrs. Parker has shared some of her things too. One thing that caught my eye was there are several schools in Victorville with very high APIs but very similar demographics to ours. They're using all of their Title I money to buy additional instructional minutes, which just struck me as being such a really clean, simple thing to do, but they've had great results with it. And so I've been shopping this idea of buying instructional minutes around, trying to find money to do that specifically for science. But I think there's a lot of things that we can continue to pursue and learn from as these other districts share what's been working for them. And I don't know if Mrs. Parker wants to add to what.
Well, I went to a number of workshops that were budget related, and so it was incredibly helpful to me in terms of clarifying what was coming down the road and the way districts are responding to it. One thing I wanted to bring up, though, tying into the CSBA, is that we should fairly soon be getting information about the Masters in Governance program, which I know that we've all gotten brochures about in the past. It is coming to Region 11 for the first time in decades, actually. Starting in March, it will be held at Montecito Union School. So this is a golden opportunity to get that incredible training. If you pay, I know that some of us may want us to pay ourselves to go. If you pay through the district, in terms of if you write a check to the district and the district writes a check to CSBA, they can split the costs over 2 years, because you do have to buy, instead of doing it workshop by workshop, you do have to buy it as a whole unit, and so it's expensive. So really look at it when it comes, and if I get emails about it, I'll forward it to Dr. Sarvis to send on.
And I have the pamphlet, and I have it going to your boxes.
Yeah.
I put it in the
I received mine
box.
in the mail yesterday.
Good.
Highly, highly recommend it for professional development for board members.
I'd like to give this to Mrs. Deacon. It's nice to see one of us in the news, in the community, doing good things. I think that's part of what we're elected to do, so thank you very much.
husband was very intrigued with the idea of being in the society pages. I have to tell you, I don't know if intrigued is the right idea, but anyway.
Mrs. Cordero.
Well, I just wanted to do a quick update on what's going on with Cesar Chavez Charter School. I attended a governance council meeting last night, and I'm not sure that everybody is aware, but the governance council voted to pursue a new charter rather than continue with the possibility of a renewal. So they have developed a number of task forces that have been meeting since before the break, et cetera. And they've done a tremendous amount of work. So they are really putting in a tremendous effort to make sure that they are examining, as much of, the school as possible, looking at a new academic plan, examining other schools, reading additional research. I was happy to hear that they are pleased with having Pat Morales on their campus. They feel that she's been very effective in helping them. They're in fact anxious to have her do a number of what do I want to say, tasks that they would then be able to take off the plate of a new principal. So I was happy to hear that they feel comfortable with her and confident in her ability to work with them, and that they are very concerned about trying to get some assurances from the district and from the board that we are in fact willing to approve a new charter. That was their primary concern. But one of the things that they identified as a real opportunity in pursuing a new charter is the ability to start over in a number of areas, and particularly with PI status, so that they wouldn't be out from under that umbrella and could start. They in fact use that term, to wipe the slate clean. So I just felt much more optimistic after last night's meeting in terms of how they're moving forward and how the community as a whole feels about the process. They seem to all be very optimistic.
Are they, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Cesar Chavez was very prominently featured on Monday at UCSB when they had the groundbreaking for a new NOAA facility there, and the Undersecretary of Commerce, Jane Lubchenco, who's the head of NOAA, was there, and Lois Capps was there, but Cesar Chavez students were there, and this is again a great example of that kind of vertical integration between, the ivory tower and K through 12. So it was really nice to have them there and see them there.
Dr. Noel.
I just wondered, do the Cesar Chavez people know that, and I'm not sure this would be true, but they could very well be eligible for a public charter school grant program?
They have, one of their forces is a grant investigation task force. They're looking at all the ways that they might be able to apply for new charter startup, for a whole variety of additional funds.
I don't know how it would look from the state's level, but
they are
quite a bit of money available, and also the revolving loan fund.
Right. They are definitely aware of a number of those, and they are very actively researching them.
Is the district taking an active role in helping them go through this process?
Yes, very. In fact, I spent an hour with Michael Maciossi, one of the staff members, and got some of the same feedback about Pat Morales at the school. Go ahead.
And I've also talked several times with Lee Fleming, the president of the Governance Council, and she's keeping me up to date on their search for a principal. They're in the process of doing phone interviews. I will be on the committee when they do the selection, and that's going really well. They're very happy with the number and the quality of applicants that they have. And then, of course, I visit the school regularly. I went this week again, and I talked with Pat Morales. all the time.
Let me also say, since they've done a considerable amount of work already in drafting a new charter, new ideas about what this would look like, new designs, and they have a number of other charters that they've been looking at that they think are providing a particularly effective model. They would like to give us an advanced copy of that, and I'd like to use, when they think that's ready, I would like to use that as a basis for the board to sit down with them in a workshop setting and have a dialogue with them, so that we could have a board meeting here around a table and talk about under what conditions we would accept such a charter, so that each board member can weigh in and do that in a public manner.
Yeah, I would hope that they would use
I'm just
Harding-
going to say point of order here, because I think we're moving beyond board
Okay.
comments and correspondence and into like an
Okay.
item on Cesar Chavez. So
Okay.
I think we need to be careful about that.
Okay, thank you. Any other board comments? How about future agenda items?
Well, I just snuck in a future agenda item, so I won't have to do it now. But I would like to remind you that we have a special meeting scheduled for February 2nd, 6 o'clock.
Okay. Hearing no more business,